Whatever division.
I don't know if there's like an overall winner or not. I mean, but I think if there is, Hillcrest was in to win it and got second.
But there's kind of.
Okay, everyone, I'd like to call the meeting to order. And welcome everyone to the meeting of the Canyons Board of Education. Today is October 4th, 2022. And we are meeting at the district office located at 9361 South 300 East in Sandy, Utah. This is our study session, and I will excuse Mrs. Amanda Oakes. She will be joining us later in the meeting. So first item on our agenda for study session, and I'll just give a little commentary. This is something I'm excited about. We're going to have strategic plan focus groups or committees reports. And so this is one of the reasons I'm excited, because this is where we start really talking about how to implement the strategic plan and it becomes real. So we will start out, there are 4 groups that will report, and the leads from each of those groups will give us about a 15 or 20-minute report. And board, if you have some clarifying questions, please feel free to ask them. Then at the conclusion of the reports, we will have opportunity for board discussion of the whole that was reported. So with that, let's see, I guess we're going to get our
There it is.
Our slideshow up here. Great, thank you. So the first committee to report is a committee on high quality learning. And so I will turn time over to Dr. Robert Dowdle, who is the lead for that committee.
Thank you. Thank you for putting that up. So high quality learning committee. Everybody showed up. I'm appreciative of that. We had 3 board members. All the rest of the committee members made it. And I think it was a great meeting. So these button.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Look at that. Okay, so we started off looking at the priorities that had been set up in the round table, and we got through 2 of them pretty much. There's so much to talk about. The first one was about PLCs. And the Board of Education made an incredible commitment this year to have early out Fridays for the high schools. We recognized the middle schools had to make a change in practice, which did ruffle their feathers just a little bit, but they're making, I think, good progress with that treatment they needed. The elementaries have been doing it in a little bit different way, but the high schools are very grateful for the time. And one of the things that we wanted to make sure as a school performance team and as an MTSS team is that we're fully committed to the PLC rollout. So that was going to require not only setting expectations, but also making sure that our leaders and our teachers get training this year to make it work. And that's not to say that we haven't had high performing PLCs in our schools at all 3 levels. We have, but to make the leap that we need to up the game a little bit, we did a couple of things. We brought Bob Sonju in from Solution Tree. He is actually a principal in Utah down in St. George, and he provided training to our leadership and for principals and the teams they selected to bring in June on the 21st and 22nd, I believe. And one of those days was for elementary schools, the other for secondary. And that was very good training. I sat in on Bob's training. He went through some really important basics. We also had a number of school teams attending conferences locally or nationally. From the high school, we had Brighton High School that went to a solution tree training with a large group of teachers. And I know there were others that went. And then we've had principal leadership meeting trainings. And so far up to date, besides the Bob Sonju, we had a September 1st principal leadership meeting. We have another one this Thursday. We have another one November 17th. Those are for principals, and the APs will be getting a condensed version on October 13th themselves. We also are having discussions on professional learning communities at work. That's the title of the book, which you all have a copy of. And we're having that book study in our level meetings. We've covered chapters 1 and 2. Our next meeting will be 3 and 4. I will report that the high schools were fully committed to reading and participating in the book study. And all of our schools are providing training at the school level for their teachers. I can report that from the high schools, from the middle and elementary level, same. So we really are trying to push this forward. In our first meeting on September 1st, I did take a little bit of time talking to the principals to establish our expectations about how we would use PLC time this year, and that we needed to be fully committed to it. So that was just a report in the committee on what we've been doing to hopefully help our board members who are in there understand that we really were putting a full effort forward. Our next topic that we went to was the portrait of the graduate. And this took quite a bit of time. We did not, well, there's still more that we could discuss about portrait of the graduate. But just to review, portrait of a graduate from USBE has 13 competencies. All 13 are mentioned in the CSD strategic plan. Not all 13 are in the high quality learning, however. And so it's great to know that there is a focus that blends those two things together. Members of MTSS have been to USBE provided training on portrait of a graduate. And it was recommended by USBE that we seriously consider consolidation of the 13 competencies to better reflect the local priorities and focus of our district. One way to look at it is that 13 is a long list, and most people don't really remember a list that large. And so consolidating it, not necessarily throwing any of the competencies out, that's not the recommendation, but to put ones are a priority at this time, became a discussion that we had. I've given you a packet. We looked at this in our committee. A sample, this is a very small sample of what's available. And I can send you the link if you don't have it. I know some of you do, the three members of the committees do have the link, but this shows what schools across the nation have done to their versions of portrait of the graduate. And as you can see, a lot of them are around 6 or 7. Some of the examples are down around 5 competencies. But if you look at them a little more closely, some of them actually combine competencies into categories. And what I wanted you to see was a visual to maybe put in your mind what that would look like. So we have not really gone down the road in that way. We've had the training on how to do it, but we have not made any efforts to do it. And one thing that we're going to ask is for the board to discuss whether they want to do it as a group, meaning you, the board, consolidation, or if you want to send it back to the committee, or any other direction that you want on what to do with that. We also went over a couple of statements here that maybe really show how the work that we've been doing in the district complements each other and connects the dots with each other. So we've been working with the CSD mission for a long time, which is every student who attends CSD will graduate college and career ready. And we wanted to connect to that very important mission statement to POG and the strategic plan. So the purpose of a CSD POG, I'm glad that you're all trained so you're not getting lost in the acronyms there. Represent what students need to know and do to be college and career ready. The strategic plan is what the adults will do to make sure that they are college and career ready. And the POG links the district mission to the district strategic plan. So that's something that we had discussed in our committee, and we're open to any kind of conversation regarding those thoughts. And then we spent a fair amount of time also talking about a need to focus on diverse pathways for successful learning, including advanced learner opportunities. And it also moves quickly to the second bullet point, which is we have a need to highlight the innovative and advanced opportunities currently provided by teachers. Now, the purpose of doing that is not to say we've arrived, we've completed, we're there. It is to say there is an awful lot going on in the district, which is worthy of highlighting and which is worthy of emulating, is really looked to around the state, whether that be a charter, private, or another public school, as to great work happening. And sometimes we don't get our message out very well as far as what's happening in the classroom to help this group really appreciate and understand what we're doing. And so we thought that we could discuss about ways to get that information out a little bit better. So that is really what we were talking about for an hour and a half. I didn't want to try to replicate the actual conversation because I think that the board members who were there probably want to weigh in on some of these ideas as well. And so I think I'd like to open it up for discussion and questions about what we were doing in there. So maybe I can invite Amber and Holly to share some ideas that they have about our meeting.
So I think the meeting was great. We as a committee were wondering, like, does the board want to start working on the portrait of a graduate? Do you want our committee to try to work on it? Do you want a separate board committee to work on it? And because we do feel, our committee does feel like we need to start working on our own graduate. Canyon's own version, and that's why we have these examples. And then Holly brought up, I think, the other point right here.
Yeah.
Which we all agreed with. We all agreed to. Yeah.
Do you want to?
No, you go ahead.
Okay. I was like, wait,
That was your point.
you have more? Okay, so also there was a good amount of time spent on talking about the effectiveness of PLCs. And I missed a portion of that, but then talked to Bob and was all caught up. And I actually have heard amazing things from our principals about what's happening in PLCs. A lot of them were doing something like PLCs before, but just with this new focus and emphasis, there's just some really neat things. And I'm excited. I'm going to go and observe some in some of my schools. But so I wanted to say first, hats off to everyone who's really charged ahead with that, because that is really neat. I had two thoughts. So we talked about how where there's 13 competencies, maybe that's too much. And we have this packet, but in our strategic plan, we did specifically highlight certain portrait of a graduate traits. So I think we definitely need to take a high focus lens into what's already been outlined here when we're looking at high quality learning, which were creativity, innovation, collaboration, communication, curiosity, critical thinking, and problem solving. And actually, the Utah State Board of Education has it divided into colors. And the colors are kind of schematic, when you say, Nancy, to the attributes. And so actually, there's two colors that we're trying to hit there with that high quality learning. So I think that as we delve in and figure that out, that this should be a roadmap for us, at least as far as the high quality learning goes, since that was what was identified in our strategic plan. And then the need to focus on diverse pathways for successful learning. I just feel that student engagement piece was such a big part of the workshops when I was in that workshop with teachers and parents. And as we now have formed this strategic enrollment committee that Jeff Haney is heading up, I really feel that allowing parents to A, see what we're already doing, and B, make sure we're providing even more. A lot of parents I talk to, when they're thinking of different choices for schools, if they feel they have to move outside of the neighborhood school to meet the needs of their child, it kind of opens the door up where they're saying, okay, well, I can go to this Canyon School District school and drive them over here, but I'm going to be driving anyway. So maybe there's other schools that I'm going to be looking at and what's going to meet the needs of my child the best. And I have heard that story over and over again. And so I think that focus for these diverse pathways for success, if in every elementary school, Mont said this before in board meeting, we ought to be able to challenge every student. And so the student whose parents may not have the resources to drive them over to a DLI or a SALTA, well, guess what? If they've got an advanced class that's across the hallway for 5th grade math or something, I'm just everyone else can think of better ideas than that, but that provides an option. So anyway, so I'm excited for that discussion.
So the competencies that Holly's referring to, the state is divided into 3 categories. We call it MAP. So that's mastery, autonomy, and purpose. And I believe it's the autonomy that is mostly listed in the high quality.
Yep.
So, and bullet A, which you were referring to, is looking to improve in some of our offerings in some of our schools, right? Quickly led also to that second one, which is, well, yeah, we always can improve for sure, and we should, but also we've got some amazing things going on right now that we need to talk about.
Great. So what I heard in that report, there are a couple of things that really in the board discussion time we should talk about and then come back to these things after we've heard all the reports, because some of them may be similar and we may need to, consolidate, right? So, all right. Any other clarifying questions for this one?
Yeah. So on the professional learning, how much extra workload that put on the teachers, or is that compensated by? Because I know we're doing it, get better quality and some more teaching and stuff, but is there more requirements on the teachers to participate in that?
That's an excellent question, and it really the answer is special ed-esque in nature, and that is it depends. So we have high-performing PLCs in many locations. So it really did not amount to them. For some, it meant quite a bit of challenge to come up to speed on how do I run work in an effective PLC. It does take effort for the team to gel, to create purpose. It does take effort once you get into the meetings to run those effectively, because you are looking at data, you are looking at essential standards, you are looking at common formative assessments. It does represent work, but at the same time, the Board of Education did provide time, has provided time in the past, and now added for the high school time to work on it. So I don't think that teachers who are new to this are going to say this is a cakewalk and no big deal, because to do this well, it's effort.
It seems like the data collection would probably be the hardest one to keep up on. Because if you're going with your peers and you haven't put your data in, it sort of leaves you looking bad. So the other question I had is on the second one, the diverse pathways. Our CTE program for some time now has had vocational pathways. We've been talking about that. it hasn't gone anywhere. I'm wondering, was that discussed in your group about the possibility? I mean, I've attended 2 or 3 conferences with them over the years and stuff, talking about vocational pathways so that kids have something to focus on and say, especially that, oh, I'm moving this pathway. You'd always change. I mean, I had 3 different mastermind decisions in college, but was there any discussion on the vocational, the CTE program?
So we did not talk about the CTE pathways. I am curious for clarifying question back to you. I think you just said that CTE pathways are not going anywhere. Did you say
Well, I
that?
haven't seen them take wing yet. Maybe that, as we've talked in several times over the years, so.
I think that you would find that in many cases, the pathways are actually up and going. We have concentrators in CTE who take dozens of classes which are related to the pathways. And we have programs out there that are distinct pathways. So for example, we have a diesel pathway. It's not just a course. It actually gets kids going from 0 to industry trained and ready, where they can walk into a full-time job. And we have many things like that. As far as pathways, where you have a series of classes together, we have a lot of students who are concentrators, and they do engage in that and have for years. Could we do a better job? Absolutely. Could more be involved? Absolutely. That's always the answer, but it's not.
Maybe you didn't clarify it enough. I mean, some of the stuff we've looked at, that every kid would have a career pathway.
Oh,
That every kid would have a pathway that they were looking for, and then that would tie in if it's a chemistry, because you're gonna be a chemist or whatever, then you have to, all those classes, that each kid would have sort of a pathway vocationally, either through the vocational realm or through the,
sure. So when you say every student, we are not there.
yeah, I mean, that's what, because I know we have a lot of many different specialties and areas and stuff, but a lot of the conferences that I've attended on that, they'd had actually a whole school would have pathways for each one of their kids. It gives them something to shoot for, but it also gives them experience to find out whether or not they like that before they go or not. I mean,
So when you and I were on an SEC together, Schools Community Council, when I was principal and you were on there, we actually had $1 million grant to help us move in that direction, and we had a multi-year effort. And it did not result in every student doing it. It did result in many more doing it.
yeah. I mean, just the different things I've attended over the years, talked about that being we talked about pathways. That's a true pathway for each one of the kids.
So yeah, Clarine had a comment, and then just remind the board that following all of the presentations will be, let's sort through all these kind of recommendations for next steps.
So when we went to the Hillcrest, it wasn't a graduation. I was trying to think of the right terminology for it. It's before their graduation. They present what the Hillcrest students are doing, and they got their scholarship presentations. Can you help me with-
So that was IB, International Baccalaureate.
Right.
Okay.
So when we went to that, I noticed that many, probably at least 70% of the kids said they were going to college and they had no idea what they're going out in. And I think sometimes if we have what Steve's talking about, and of course we're not there yet, right? Then they kind of already have a path. So when they get to college, they don't waste 3 years trying to figure out what they want to do, because they can kind of get sunk in what they want to do at the high school level. But just to respond to what Steve was saying, that it would be good, we could start going up.
Sure. Any other clarifying questions for this committee? Okay, thank you for that report. And we will, next committee is the Access and Opportunity Committee. I will turn the time over to Wendy Dow, who is the lead for that committee.
Yes. Well, good evening. I'm so excited to be here. I got like the best committee because I'm very passionate about this. So I apologize. I'm a little energetic. So
Here to tell.
I know. I keep it contained. So our committee started by really kind of unpacking the impact statement and the 2 strategic initiatives that are tied to this particular pillar. So we wanted to make sure that we were all on the same page as to, you know, the direction that we're going as a district and what we want to focus on. So the first, the impact statement overall, CSD provides access to resources and opportunities that build a positive and inclusive environment for all students and parents. And I loved what President Tingey said in this, is she talked about access doesn't always lead to opportunity. There are barriers sometimes to people accessing what we provide. And so one of the goals that we have in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years is to make sure that all of our students and our families know about and take advantage of those opportunities, and that wherever we can, we're breaking down those barriers. If it's a transportation barrier, if it's a cost barrier, whatever that is, we can really kind of think outside the box and figure those things out. So we felt like we were all on the same, I felt like we were all on the same page. So that was pretty exciting. There's two strategic initiatives. So first is that CSD schools will provide opportunities and experiences designed to build understanding and advocacy of all students. And we're looking at the full spectrum of learners here. So from our students who are special education students, our multilingual students, students who have 504s because they have specific disabilities where they need accommodations, and also our advanced learners. So it's interesting that we're seeing those opportunities for advanced learners coming up in high quality instruction. It was also an emphasis in access and opportunity as well to make sure that we're taking care of all of our students. And the second strategic initiative is that we create an environment that provides equitable access to resources for individual student needs, recognizing that we need to distribute those resources based on the needs, meeting parents and students where they are, and then make sure we're adequately addressing that. And also not making assumptions about different feeder patterns. And we'll give you a couple of examples of that. So we started with some data, because I love data, right? So we started with, I shared, and I'd be happy to share this with all of the board members. We went through and looked at our students of color. We looked at our low-income students, our McKinney-Vento special education students, numbers of 504 students, and our multilingual students. And we broke it out by feeder patterns so that we could see what was happening in each of the feeders. And we also broke it out by elementary, middle, and high schools, and then a total for each of those feeders. And then there was a lot in that data that affirmed what we believe. So first, Hillcrest and Jordan certainly have higher rates of low-income students, McKinney-Vento students, multilingual students. We expected that. And our higher income feeders had higher numbers of 504s. And it was interesting that our committee acknowledged that sometimes parents that are coming out of higher income households understand how the education system works a little bit more, so they can advocate for those 504s. So what kinds of things are we doing to make sure that all of our students and all of our families have access to that? What does that look like? So that was very telling in the data as well. And then we had some surprises. When we looked at the Brighton feeder, they had higher numbers of special education students. They were above that 10% threshold that we usually look at. And they also have higher numbers of McKinney-Vento students than expected. It also allows us to look at and not make assumptions about different communities. Like when we were looking at Corner's feeder pattern, we noticed that in Draper Park and Corner Canyon, we have over 120 families that are McKinney-Vento. And so you wouldn't think that necessarily. And so just being aware of that allows us to make better decisions about that. And then the committee requested some additional data. So first off, we wanted some FAFSA completion data. So the federal financial aid application rates, Utah is, I think the superintendent said, dead last in the country in FAFSA completion. So there was a request to look at what is our state, what is our district doing, and then what's happening by high school. And then we can also disaggregate that by different groups of students so we can see where we need to target that to make sure that our families have access to funding for post-secondary opportunities. And then we also, it was asked, what is our percentage of provisional teachers by feeder and by school? We've noticed when we have a high number of provisional teachers in a particular location, and then comparing that with our student achievement data, that kind of also will go, you'll see how that fits in with some of the priorities that came out of this particular committee. We also did talk about, we have administered what's known as the Casey survey in our Hillcrest feeder. it gives us a lot of information because it asks for really thorough data from our parents, from our teachers, and from our students, and gives us a lot of indicators about what our community needs, what they know that we have, what information gaps there are. And so we did talk about the possibility of, do we need to explore expanding that so we have some more information by feeders so that we can make decisions as we allocate resources out to our different feeders. Our recommended focal areas, no surprise, PLCs are a big place where we can meet the needs of all of these different students. So when you're understanding that you have diverse learners in your classroom, you're using that common formative assessment data and you're adjusting instruction based on those different learners. And also we talked a lot about making sure the instruction is rigorous. I know Amber and I have had lots of conversations about not watering down curriculum for different types of students, but making sure that they're very engaged and they get challenged just like everybody else does, and that we keep those high standards for everyone. And then also utilizing our student support teams to address the more intensive needs of students. We talked a lot about that. In order to do all of that, though, we have to provide some professional learning for teachers. And this is not something that's going to be like, this year you get all of this professional learning. This is like a 3-year, 5-year, 10-year plan of what this would look like. I know as a teacher, I would freak out a little bit if I were trying to figure out, how am I going to take this student who's a newcomer to this country and make this project accessible to them, but also really challenge the highly advanced learner? We've got to train people in how to do that. There are definitely ways in which that can happen. We just need to make sure we're providing the tools to have that be a success. And then how are we adjusting that instruction and differentiating within a classroom? Is that a small group instruction protocol? Do we need to look at some of the things we talked about, other districts, Salt Lake District, Alpine District, providing some different opportunities for advanced learners? What does that look like as you're also providing the interventions for students who are struggling? And so those were some of the things we talked about there. We also talked about that we have already started to implement in our district an Fte Equity Model. So you have a base formula that sends, everybody gets a certain number of teachers based on the number of students, but we also provide additional FTE to schools when you have large numbers of newcomers, for example, or high mobility rates in a particular school, or you have students who are not proficient. They're not reaching those proficiency levels. We're going to need to send more FTE to that school to help with those interventions. So we want those supports to be systemic so that we have a path for how we're doing that. And that has to keep being refined. And I know Leon gets stressed out every time I talk about this model because he's just like, it costs money, Wendy. It costs a lot of money to do this. And it does. But how to figure out how to do that and still meet the individualized needs of each of the feeders in each of our schools. So there's a way to make sure we have a system, but also meeting those individual needs. And then we did talk about teacher recruitment and retention. How do we build the capacity of teachers? We've talked a lot about that. Brian's going to talk quite a bit about that. How do we provide supports for provisional teachers? Do we need to look at things like a longevity bonus for schools where there's higher turnover? So a teacher who is highly effective that is willing to stay at that school and provide that stability, do we need to add some stipends and money to support them so that they're not always like, well, I'm going to go over here to this other school where it's a little bit easier, so that we can get that expertise in our schools that are having the greatest challenges. And then parent and family engagement is also a big deal. I think Mont talked a little bit about making sure that our families know about what our schools are providing, making sure they have that information, making sure we're figuring out how they can engage with their school, and that there are so many opportunities to develop those positive relationships. And maybe there are some ways, I think our schools do a really good job. There's just sometimes some barriers that they might not be able to break down, but there might be some ways in which we as a district can help support that, whether it's we're going to have a FAFSA night and we're going to run it entirely in Spanish. Okay, does that help if I have a Spanish speaking family at Corner and that event is happening at Jordan? Can I figure out a way to transport them to get that family there so that they can have access to that? Those are the things that we need to be thinking about to support our parents and families. Next steps, we did talk about doing at our next meeting in December, really evaluating what we're already doing well, where are our areas of weakness, where are opportunities existing, and what challenges do we have? I'm always thinking about cost as being a challenge or time as being a challenge. The superintendent talked about identifying really high impact levers like all-day kindergarten or college and career readiness access. What does that look like? Do we need to get more students in CE courses? How do we do that? How do we broaden that? And then the hiring and retention of great teachers. And then second, we identified some of the data that we wanted to bring in to help inform our decisions. And then we were tasked with gathering ideas on how to support those advanced learners at all levels. And to Dr. Dowdell's point, we're already doing a lot of those things. So do we just need to highlight and then help share those ideas so that that's more of a shared knowledge piece that goes across the district. And then a real intentional plan for systematically engaging parents and recognizing that parents engage in lots of different ways. Like I might not go to a literacy night as a parent, but every time that principal calls me and something's going on with my kid, I am there. I have a great relationship with that principal. I am all in. I'm ready to support my kid. That's parent engagement. Even if they don't show up to this really formal, big hoopla event, that parent is thoroughly invested in their kid's education. I think sometimes we're not always valuing that. So those were some of the things that we talked about. What did I miss, board members that were part of that?
You did well.
Yes, that's what I was going for. Questions or comments?
Let's see, Mon, do you have anything to add to the report or?
I don't know that I have anything to really add. She did such a nice job of covering everything we talked about. But I am so excited about this aspect of where we're going. I kind of whispered to the superintendent when you talk about Leon getting all jittery about money. You can quote me anytime you want. There is no glory in coming in under budget. If you're not spending your money in the right way, you're not doing it correct.
I'm really good at spending my
Life tells me that all the time.
We're writing that down.
Thank you. I also am very excited about this committee and this approach and this way of thinking that hopefully become just second nature to us as well. But I just wanted to highlight on the discussion about the Fafsa application. I learned something new in our committee that, because I always thought that, you know, a lot of families don't bother filling it out. It's a lot of work, takes a lot of time, and they already know ahead of time they're not gonna, their child isn't going to receive any of the benefit and as far as grants or things like that. But what I learned is that there are other things that they could qualify for, such as reduced rate student loans or other types of work study programs and things like that, that it's pretty extensive. So having learned that, I think it's important that we do a better job of communicating to parents that it's not just about getting a Pell Grant. And there's a lot of other benefits to participating in that. And, you know, you fill it out and you decide you don't want to go that path, then that's fine too. But so I just
comment to that too.
Yes, Superintendent.
So I didn't really realize what an issue this is either. And over the last 6 months or so, we've seen a decline in enrollment at Salt Lake Community College. And this is the #1 barrier to college attainment, according to President Upton at SLIC. And there's a lot of work to try to reduce the paperwork. It's if you've done it, it's really complex, but there's just a lot there to be had. And I think our schools do a ton with parent nights and FAFSA nights, and people are trying to coach parents and students up. The parent has to be there. That's one thing, because their tax information has to be entered. So it is kind of a team effort, but in every one of our P20 Alliance meetings with Slick, and I've heard it from other college presidents as well, that they're like, if that's one thing that you can address, and Utah is dead last. Some states are moving to mandatory a requirement to fill it out. I don't think Utah, I don't think that's where we are going or want to go. But the fact remains that for many students, just that little hurdle of actually filling out FAFSA and then realizing what grants or scholarships are available means the difference. So, I think if we could look at that data internally, and I know Jordan High has received awards for being one of the highest high schools in the state for completion. So we are doing a lot, but I mean, if we can move that needle just a little, I think, the benefits on the backside of that are huge. So.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, we talked about that we need to do a better job of communicating what FAFSA is and what it is not. And just so that parents are informed, right? They still make the decision, but that they have accurate and up-to-date current information and not just a perception. So any other clarifying questions?
I have one.
Yes.
You did a fantastic job, by the way. Super excited to see the data, how that was broken down. And I can really tell that your committee really pulled out every little piece of that initiative for success criteria. So pretty awesome. My one question is, when you talked about the distribution of FTEs and making sure that those schools and kids that have those needs, a concern I have when you mentioned that is, like, my son in his first grade class this year has a child that speaks Russian and a child that speaks Spanish, but this is not an elementary school that has ever had anyone that speaks Russian before. And I don't know if we look at all our elementary schools that this elementary school would be one of the highest for multi-language learners either. But there they are in first grade and neither one of them knows a lick of English. And I know the district has come in and helped. And, at parent-teacher conference, the teacher was saying in the beginning, this one child would just cry every day. And now she's got Google Translate on her phone with Russian. But what about those circumstances? Because if we're saying, okay, most FTE to these classrooms that have the most multi-language learners, well, what about that odd, there's only one child, but that child counts, right?
No,
So
you absolutely nailed it. That's something where we would have to look at things like, in my mind, multilingual is just something I fund and help with at the district office. So something I would look at is, do we have a group of schools that are together? Can we allocate some resources so those teachers can get help throughout? Or with Amber's team, she has a multilingual team that's dedicated to that instructional piece. Do we need to make sure that coach is trained appropriately to support that? And sometimes we probably haven't provided that professional learning because we're like, well, that elementary school doesn't have a lot. So that's what's awesome about looking at this data, is then we can identify where do we need to fill in those gaps and what does that look like for a school that has a large population? Yes, the Fte Equity Model is going to fix that. It's not going to fix those situations. So we have to be creative in that. Yes, we do. Because that teachers, they're like, what do I do? This kid's speaking Russian. I have no idea.
Yeah. And she said, by the way, the district's been amazing sending in support, but they just can't do it all the time.
That's right.
So we just had a couple days of that, and then, and trying to help that child just even feel comfortable with basic instruction,
Yeah, and who knows what kind of trauma they've undergone. And
Right.
that. So yes, absolutely. I don't have all the answers yet, but it's on our radar.
Cool. Awesome. Love it.
So in all your data, have we ever done any questionnaires of families of why they don't fill out the FAFSA? I mean, I suspect part of it could be just they didn't file their taxes, or we may need to provide some assistance in filing taxes, or other things. Maybe they don't want the information known to the federal government. Have we done any assessment to find out what it was so we can now address that?
I don't think we've done a survey on that, but that's certainly
It's
something.
interesting to find out why. I suspect, every time I go, I'm going, dang, I gotta be sure my taxes are done, and how do I upload the taxes? I suspect there's people that just don't put in taxes, that may stop them.
Or if you're looking at it going, I don't think my kid's gonna qualify for a Pell Grant, you have no idea that there's a student loan option at a very low interest rate, what does that look like? And so that you could even look at those options, you might not realize that that's there, or that there are specific jobs reserved on every campus for work study students, and they get paid at a higher rate. And a lot of times it's like, I get to work in the library, so I can work on my homework, and that's, part of work study that's been given to them. Or that it also, like what the FAFSA also does is it creates a cap for how much money a family is going to have to spend on post-secondary education. So yeah, this one kid might not have qualified, but now I have 2 kids in college, or maybe now I have 3 kids in college. It does establish a maximum amount that the family is supposed to contribute. So once you hit that, you now are starting to be eligible for some of those things. And I don't know that a lot of families know that or realize that. And so that's just all a part of the information that is just lacking there that we need to find out. But a survey would be helpful.
Worst part, I got to tell my sons and daughters how much I should be paying. Like,
Yes.
I should be paying $30,000.
Yes. It does.
So they expected it. So it wasn't very good.
For sure.
Okay, other clarifying questions, Clarine?
The question, but same thing with him. When I worked for Educational Talent Search, and I worked for 11 middle schools, 11 high schools that were lower income schools for first college bound students and their families. We ran into this all the time, and we did similar things that you've done, like had the families come in. But it's back to, there's a lot of families who didn't want their taxes known, and that was the big one. And then there was a lot of families that felt like they could send their kids into the coal mines and into the power plants, which isn't what's happening now, because they've shut those power plants down and those coal plants down. But there's other jobs better for them than college. And so they knew they didn't have the money. They knew their kid would never have the money. And so they just said, what's the point? So there's a lot of, I guess, educating we might need to do. I guess this is where we are about opportunities, because obviously I was one of those low income first college bound kiddos that made it to college, and it was because of friends who helped me fill out the form, because my mom and dad, my dad only went to 4th grade, my mom only went to 8th grade, and so they had no idea how to help me fill out those forms or how to do them. And when you're looking at our diversity, I am sure there's a lot of parents in the district who have no idea even how to go to filling those out, or or putting them in, especially if you belong to multilingual families and they may or not even do tax returns. So I guess education.
Well, we've had a lot more success too when we run those meetings for example, with our multilingual families in their language, rather than having an interpreter. The interpreter feels like a pretty big barrier. But if it's run entirely in that language, it certainly helps. But I agree with you. I think sometimes sharing that information with parents, like, did you know that if your child has 2 years of college, this is what their income earning potential becomes. Now multiply that over the course of their entire lifetime. And then they're like, oh, I had no idea. Like, I just think a lot of that is they just don't know, right? And so communicating that's really important.
Thank you so much. All right, next is the report from the Human Centered Support Committee. And I'll turn the time over to Dr. Brian McGill, Director of Student Services.
Great, thank you, President Tingy. It's an exciting week in Camden School District. Reason why I say that is I had the opportunity to attend the homecoming assembly at Alta yesterday morning. And they showed the dichotomy of what public education can provide and opportunities for kids. A year ago, I was asked to be involved with a bench press competition with all of my students, which my SBO says, McGill, you have to let the kids win. Like, obviously, you don't know me. Yesterday, I had the opportunity to watch my son, who's part of the ballroom team at Alta, lead off the festivities and activities for the homecoming assembly. So just showing all the various different pathways that are offered up for students, both when I was in school as well as today. So we had an opportunity to actually piggyback Wendy's committee, as several of us as directors are on that committee. We had Amber and Steve represent, and Clarine is also representative on our committee as well. So we started with the impact statement, and I included some guiding questions for the focus group. Impact statement: all students, families, and employees feel safe, supported, and have a sense of belonging within their school communities. And some of the group responses that came out of that, Amber spoke to just the importance of creating a welcoming culture throughout our entire school community for both students and staff. That's imperative. Creating that positive environment and the atmosphere we create is everything. Modeling from leadership at the district and at the school level, feeling valued and setting a positive tone with students, parents, and staff. That's also another key critical component. We know oftentimes a lot of our front office working staff, it's that first impression, right? First contact that a lot of our parents have coming into the school. So it's important to make sure that our parents feel welcome and valued as part of our community. Establishing authentic and genuine relational trust. Superintendent Robbins is always speaking to this, and I am 100% a huge firm believer in this. I think everything starts and stops with creating relational trust and giving time to our students, investing in them, doing the same for our staff, so that they feel valued, they feel recognized, they feel a part of this magic that we're creating in public education. And then how do we go about measuring this particular impact statement and our success criteria, both quantitatively and qualitatively as we move forward? And I'll share some examples of what came out of our committee there. So our first initiative is that Canyons will provide support for the physical, social, and psychological safety of students and staff. Again, recognizing that this focuses on both the kids that we serve as well as our employees in the district. So as a result of that, I also turned some time over to Steve Diamond, who's a part of our committee, to speak to some of the initiatives that we're doing as it relates to employees and supports for them here in Canyon School District. Again, we talked about creating and sustaining that sense of belonging. We talked about increasing classroom engagement through relationship building again, inclusionary practices, relevance to real life application, and then maximizing that depth of knowledge opportunity for our students in the classroom. A lot of times when kids can make the connection of relevance and purpose in their learning to real life world application, their motivational levels increase both intrinsically as well as extrinsically. So working with our teachers to help them get into that DOK 3-4 range. So again, students aren't just learning information for the sake of learning, but what are they doing with that information once they gather that in terms of analysis, critical thinking, applying, creating, synthesizing, things of that nature. Staff modeling the skills necessary to support a safe and supportive learning environment for students. So again, that modeling component. We know that students are observers, right? And especially during those early childhood years, as well as in the middle school, a lot of what they see and a lot of what they watch tells them whether or not, their teacher is being genuine and authentic and modeling what needs to have happen for student learning in the class. Supporting students' social, emotional, and mental health needs as one collective community. Also critically important there is providing that same opportunity for staff and employees. And we know now more than ever, there's never been a more critical time for us to engage in these conversations and look at expanding supports for both students and staff. We know coming out of COVID, the major adjustments that have transpired, about 40% of our kids struggling with anxiety and depression. And as I've spoken time and time again about Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs, kids aren't going to be able to self-actualize in a multitude of ways in a school setting, in a classroom setting, unless they've got those needs met and they can actually focus on their learning. And then how do we intend to measure this? Again, looking at ways that we can measure it over time. So the staff measuring success criteria, again, a lot of this we turned over to Steve Diamond to report out, but one of the ways that we can look at satisfaction across the district from our employees is looking at that staff satisfaction survey. What does it tell us? What are the strengths? What are we doing well? What are areas where we can maybe focus on and bring about improvements, again, to help with that recruitment and retention of our teachers in particular. There's also an employee exit survey that he spoke to. So what information and data can we gather from that? It tells us when our employees are leaving, either the profession as a whole, or if they're looking to take another job in another district, which being here along the Wasatch Front is always something that we're in competition with our local school districts. Just looking at the exit survey data, why is it that they're leaving? And what can we learn from that? And what can we implement to provide additional supports? I opened up with the bench press theme because wellness is something Wendy spoke about her passion of access and opportunity. I'm very passionate about wellness. And in cabinet yesterday, we talked a lot about helping our teachers on the preventative side in terms of healthy living strategies versus the intervention side, which a lot of times can lead to unhealthy vices and mechanisms and ways to help cope with some of the stress that our employees are feeling. So one of the ways in which we do that, we provide the employee assistance program. We just had the director in a couple of meetings ago with our principals, did a full-scale presentation on what they offer. They do everything from mental health, legal, financial, all kinds of different services and supports that they provide. We have a wellness committee in our school district that's led up by Everett in HR. And as part of that wellness committee, we have school living leaders that are assigned to each of the different schools. And I know speaking at Alta High School, my particular living leader would set up activities of engagement for our staff, say on Saturdays or evenings, to take walks, do hikes. They did paddleboarding for one of their activities. So again, just bringing about that overall focus of wellness and giving employees an opportunity to engage, to connect, and do something in a healthy living. Physical activity log, that's something I know Robert Reeder through insurance and that we do a couple of times a year. I don't know how effective that is in terms of helping our employees with implementing proper healthy living strategies, because it's really just a documented record of physical activity and exercise. You turn it in and you hope you win a prize. I've done it for 11 years. I've never won a prize. That's not why I do it. I'm intrinsically driven to keep working out. We do health screenings for our employees. In fact, that just took place, I believe, last week. And then we provide other value-added measures like flu shots for our employees. We did the vaccination clinics. I know it's, at the start of this year, Jen Gerard, our nursing specialist, we had a teacher in the district email us and asked if we could set up an access mobile lab for mammogram screening. And so I just went to her and had a conversation. I said, is this doable? Is it possible? Can we work through our insurance? She did a little bit of investigating. We set it up. We did it over 2 days. We did it here at the district office. Those time slots were filled in less than 2 hours as we put it out there. And I can't tell you the number of emails we got back from teachers and employees saying, thank you. The access means the ability to do it. I didn't have to take a day off, right? So again, just those little value-added measures that we can look to improve upon in supporting our staff. Superintendent has talked about the potential for evaluating cost comparison models, looking at in-house medical clinics. Again, that access and flexibility piece for our teachers so they're not having to take time off. But also, is there a cost savings that could come from doing something such as that? I have a good friend in Granite School District who's an assistant superintendent. I was actually texting him as we were starting up the meeting, asked him this very question. He said the financial savings has been extremely significant in Granite School District for moving towards this model, which is pretty telling. And then lastly here, I've spoken to this, but just adding those value-added measures, staff appreciation, the little things that principals can do for their employees and teams within the school, I think those milestones. And then alleviating the initiative fatigue that our teachers are currently feeling right now. As a school district, I know it's been a big part of our conversation. We've launched a lot of initiatives in the years of our existence. So what are our priority initiatives? What are the non-negotiables, as Jen spoke to at the board meeting, of our teachers? Again, looking at different ways that we can add those simple appreciation and recognition opportunities for teachers. On the student side of things, again, measuring success criteria. The first thing we talked about is having a school culture and climate survey that's longitudinal, annual, and consistent. So we can actually compare data year after year after year. Different districts use different utilities. I have a friend in Jordan District. They actually created their own culture and climate survey internally, and then USPE also has a school culture and climate survey that they utilize. So they actually take data from both of those. Granite District uses Panorama. So there's various different utilities and tools that we can look to incorporate in our district. I know as a high school principal, when we had our external accreditation reviews, it always gave us a really good synopsis of where our school is at in terms of culture and climate. But if we had something consistent that we did every year, I think it would help our principals identify gaps and areas of improvement. We could build up their culture and climate within their given setting. The Casey survey that Wendy spoke to, that's the Community Youth Collaborative Institute. She spoke to that. Our Title I schools take this survey. One of the discussion points we had is it expansive enough that we could actually offer it to all the schools in Canyons, and would it provide us with enough data, again, to look at that culture and climate piece as it relates to students, teachers, and parents. The SHARP survey, which is a student health and risk prevention, which my understanding is USPE put together a subcommittee. That report's going before the board this week on updates on that, but that provides us with a wealth of information that helps us be able to predetermine what preventative measures that we need to be putting in place in schools, as well as for like the Canyons Family Ed Center. What classes should we be offering? What supports do we need to be providing for students and parents and families in relationship to the data that we receive from that? And in Canyons District, between Wendy's department and my department, there's about $10 million in grant funding that is tied back to the SHARP survey. So that's a critical utility. The CSD data dashboard, which again is unique to Canyons. Big props to Jeff Murray and the work that he does. He's pretty amazing with what he's created and what he's put together. I was looking at some discipline data just as I came into this meeting for a USPE official that had a question on something, and just to be able to access that within a matter of 30 seconds is pretty incredible. So Canyons, I think, is being very visionary and leading the way as it relates to obtaining data that we can look to utilize. Again, looking back to culture and climate and how students and how schools are doing. And just a couple of different data points that we can leverage from that is attendance and discipline. But there's a whole host and variety of different data analyses we can do, looking at correlational patterns, things of that nature. Safe UT data trends. So we get a report on that quarterly that provides us with the tips and the chats and the calls from our district, from each of our schools that go into Safe UT. Our department kind of leads the charge and works with the schools on those. They come in 24/7, as we know. And then the school report card, right? Looking at school accountability and how does that tie back to the culture and climate for each school. So again, looking at correlational patterns between high levels of learning and what the culture and climate looks at in those particular schools. The second initiative is that Canyons will provide a tiered system to support the social, emotional, and mental well-being of students. We have the portrait of a graduate, which is something that's been talked about and identified. The life skills curriculum being a part of that, a portion that's focused on tier 1 curriculum strategies for students. Wellness, mental and physical health. Again, Canyons District over the last few years has expanded the number of counselors, social workers, psychs, nurses, and school-based mental health staff. Again, not to point Leon out, but one of the concerns that we have there with ESSER monies moving forward is how do we not only sustain, but actually grow the potential to provide the supports in our schools, because not all of our schools have support across the board. We have some schools where counselors, social workers, psychs are covering multiple schools. We have partnerships with Hopeful Beginnings, Project Connection, and a new partnership that Wendy's department worked with our department on providing grant-based opportunities for mental health support for families, parents in our Title I schools through United Way. The Family Ed Center that I've already spoken to and the services that we provide through that, the Safe UT monitoring. And then we also have an internal content search monitoring feature, and myself and one of my administrative assistants are the only two in the district that get those. Those come in 24/7. It's anytime a student types something in to their Chromebook, which might be of concern. There's certain keywords that get flagged. During the day, my administrative assistant is great about entering Safe UT tips so the school gets it in real time so we can provide direct supports back to the student. If it happens outside of hours right now, it's me monitoring that, but I'm actually working with IT to see if we can get that dispatched to the principals in each of the schools so they can react and respond as needed with their students. And then we have a multi-tiered system of support. And through that, we have student success teams or student support teams at each of the different schools. I've got 2 MTSS specialists in my department. We just put together a survey today for our principals at looking at tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 evaluation measures of how they're doing at their school for each of those academically and behaviorally. And then plugging in our MTSS specialists to provide supports and guidance and improvement in those schools that are asking for that support and assistance. Because really, if student study teams are running successfully, the interventions that are being applied are supports back to the student, which in turn help them with their overall learning in the classroom. We have the district success team or district support team as well, and then the district case management team, which leads and guides. Those are our students primarily in DST that had level 1 and level 2 infractions for discipline, and DCMT are our more severe cases. But again, looking at support for those students, both perpetrators and victims, when those come forward, and identifying ways that we can help kids and families through that process. And then obviously academics, attendance, behavior, and wellness all collectively, tie together. The framework for students and staff. So kind of moving forward, what I envision, what I want this committee to be able to do is to create sort of a conceptual framework of wellness supports for both students and staff with proper longitudinal assessment measures. And what does this look like for Canyon? So I kind of painted the picture in terms of current, where we want to be in a year, 3 years, 5 years from now. And then again, looking at policy, practices, implementation strategies, programs, resources that we need to implement or look to improve upon moving forward. And then lastly, something I'm kind of excited about, we spoke to this yesterday, and Superintendent Robbins has agreed to bring Aspen Florence in. She is a former educator who actually left the profession from burnout, and she is actually doing research, design measures, looking at wellness for educators and setting standards in place. And this is a topic that's just kind of rising at the surface right now. So she's doing some work with Granite, some rural school districts, and we're bringing her in to present to cabinet. Again, just trying to look at different measures, means, and ways that we can support teachers. What can we take off their plate? How can we help them establish better boundaries? How can we help them with wellness in their lives so they have a balanced, personal and work life? So she's an educational expert advocate. She worked in Ogden District prior to these pursuits. So I was down at the State Student Service Directors Conference last week in St. George. She and I spent like an hour and a half on the phone as I was driving back, and we were both smiles and excited and very passionate, because I truly feel like this is something that we need to place as a priority focus in our district, because we're seeing issues not only in our district, but across the state, across the nation. And I feel like if we can get a pretty good pulse on this moving forward, it's going to help the morale and help all of our staff across the board here in Canyon School District. And if we want to recruit the best teachers and we want to retain them and keep them, I think this is a critical element that we need to focus on moving forward. So anyway, that's kind of a wrap up of our focus group.
Thank you. All right, board, any clarifying questions or comments from the board members that
Just
are
a
on this committee?
comment. I just spent 17 hours Friday, Saturday, and Sunday trying to put a data book together to show parents what their kids are doing, because I can't put my data into Skyward. And that was 17 hours I could have spent every day, 3 days in a row, planning lessons for those kids that are in need of those lessons versus putting data in. There is a breaking point here, and the teachers are already there. I mean, between all of the demands of the curriculum and the demands of the data, and then you have, and I really think we have to look at the data, the report card, the data, the report card. It used to be the report card and data were together, report card and data were together, and I get why we separated it kind of for standard-based grading. It just doubles the load on teachers. And I think we just need to get people together and say, what can we, like she said, what can we really get rid of or prioritize to make education best for kids, but also how about the teachers? Because the load is way too big. And they never have family time. They never have weekend time. They never have, I mean, there's no downtime. I haven't had any downtime in 6 weeks since I went back to sixth grade and I had no idea, which brings me to everybody who is telling the teachers what to do should have to go spend 1 month in a classroom and then come back and brainstorm about what it is that we need to fix, because they're not in there. I wasn't there last year and the year before as a coach, and I was thinking, oh, it can't be that hard. Well, I went back and it is that hard. And so I think everyone just needs to go back into the classroom for a month and then have a discussion about what that was really like. And it needs to be the month that you have to prepare all the data. I mean, like, sure, we do PLCs and we have data every time, but to put the data binder together so the parents can see all the data and get the kids to cooperate with putting in the data, I lost probably 8 days of teaching time trying to do that. So then I've lost 8 days of teaching time and, my whole lifetime for 2 weeks. So yes, we really need to re-look at everything that has to do with what we're asking people to do.
Thank you. Other comments or clarifying questions? Mr. Wrigley, then Mrs.
Yeah, I appreciate being that committee and stuff. This is interesting. I think this is like the foundation committee. Not all of them are good, but if we don't get this, the rest of it's gonna crumble. It's really sort of interesting because society in general is saying, we want to work at home. How many teachers can work out of home, or how many custodians can work out of home? So our staff are sort of totally different than the trend of what's happening nationally. And so we need to try to figure out how we're going to deal with that. And so the culture of the needs to become more of a family. And I think you presented that. How do we deal with it? How do we deal with that? And I think we brought it also up, and I think we're looking at just the workload is doable, because you could have all this other stuff, and if that's the foundation on the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So we had some really good discussions. We just sort of scratched the surface within an hour, and I look forward to the future. But yeah, this is going to be an interesting thing. And because we have our Gen X's and our Y's and Z's and stuff like that, and each one of them expects different things. And nowadays, if you don't give it to me, I'm out of here. It wasn't that way 5 years ago, 10 years ago. So, and it's even exacerbated now after COVID expectations. So we have a lot to do on this committee to be able to get the foundation down, to be able to do all the other stuff on the other committees that we need to do. No pressure on you.
Yeah, no pressure.
Thank
I'll
you.
turn over to Steve Diamond, who's now here.
Holly.
Thank you so much for your presentation. I'm excited about a lot of the things that you've talked about. As far as the wellness for our educators, when we have incorporate best practices, I agree with Clarine. I think we ought to include how are we going to simplify, and simplifying processes for teachers just needs to be a priority. When I was in the classroom 20 years ago, when I did parent teacher conference, it wasn't data and graphs and all these things. We've gone from the art of teaching to the science of teaching, but we still expect the art. And I was just talking to a teacher before this meeting, and she was saying, I feel like I normally do in May and it's October, and a lot of my colleagues feel that way. And I know not all of them do, but I tell you what, I really feel like it's our best teachers that are feeling the most burnout, because they want to do everything just right. And they have a hard time maybe prioritizing sometimes, because all of it's required and they're trying to stay up on the letters and stay up on that. So I hope that with that incorporate best practices that we really look at how to simplify, so that we have all of these things up here that it's supposed to trickle down to the kids and the students having the best experience possible. But I think sometimes we get a little trapped up here, and then actually the kids are the ones that end up suffering a little bit. So that's all I have to say about that.
Thank you, Amber.
So I just wanna tell Brian, thank you. He did a great job. I think he covered everything and more that we discussed, so. But Holly, that incorporate best practices, I believe what we're talking about is under wellness. So we're gonna try to teach teachers what are the best practices they can use in their own life. So, yes, that it's under the wellness.
To add on to that, the best practice we could learn is to go there at 8:35 when we're supposed to and leave there at 4 o'clock when we're supposed to and not take anything home. Like have people standing out in the parking lot going, nope, take it back. Nope, take it back. Nope, take it back. That would be the best wellness we could teach anybody. Because there are teachers who know how to do that. They just walk out at 4 o'clock, they take nothing home, they do nothing. Then there's teachers that are like me, have my cart and there's 4 boxes on my cart and it's going home every night and then getting loaded back up in the morning and going back in the next morning. I need someone in the parking lot going, no, Clarion, take it back. No, take it back. No. And that would be the best thing that could ever happen. And let teachers have duty-free lunch. I mean, there are places, the union fought for duty-free lunch. And yet every time you turn around, people are encroaching on this duty-free lunch. Well, we could have our team meeting during duty-free lunch. And we need to learn to say no. Teachers don't know how to say no. We need to learn how to say no.
I've said this many a times, but you know, in our profession, it's pretty unique, right? Because we're dealing with human lives and we're dealing with kids who are very impressionable and have their whole lifelong, life ahead of them. And it's our job to help influence, impact, educate, empower, guide, counsel, steering them on the right path. And I've said this many, many times, but being an engineers of human capital is what we do. And I think a lot of us, knowing that there's always more that can be done, the perfectionist in a lot of us as educators, and I know I'm guilty of this as well as a teacher, counselor, and as an administrator. There's always something more you can do for this kid and that family. And sometimes we need to be okay with saying, you know what, I'm choosing time for myself tonight and I am leaving at 4 o'clock and I am going to set a personal boundary so I can take care of myself and my family and my needs so I can return tomorrow and be the best teacher I can possibly be in the classroom for my kids.
Well, it's our families, like you said, it's our own personal families that get hurt the most because obviously we're not there for them.
Okay, great. I'm making notes of things that we'll come back and discuss. So Holly, did you have something else clarifying or is it? more-
Well, yeah, I just appreciated Amber pointing out
But
that,
I understand why you thought that, yeah.
yeah, the incorporate best practices has nothing to do with how we're going to help alleviate the load. So I just would encourage the group to think about possibly adding a bullet point under wellness for educators where that is also one of our focuses, is how to
And
simplify.
I agree with you.
Some districts actually have a wellness person that's all they focus on.
Amanda has a question.
So I am in agreement about the question surrounding teachers. I have a clarifying question as far as the Community and Youth Collaborative Institute survey. So I know that in the past, members of the public have risen, they've brought up questions and concerns about the SHARP survey and making sure that their data is protected. I would love to know where we're at with the SHARP survey, like how, I know in the past, one of the discussion points has been whether or not there are certain questions on the SHARPs that we can adjust and how well we're actually clarifying or allowing parents to opt out or to be aware of what's on the SHARP survey ahead of time so that they're not taken unawares by that. And then I'm also, curious as to the other survey, like how that functions with their data and are there concerns about data collection? Can we see what the list of questions are?
Yeah, so as far as speaking to SHARPs, and I don't know if you were in here when I was speaking to it, but there's
sorry.
actually the subcommittee that USBE put in place is actually supposed to provide a report back to USBE this week. So I think based upon what comes from that, part of the discussion and dialogue with that, as I learned in St. George at our meetings last week, is that one of the things that they're potentially looking to do is to take off the sexual orientation and gender identity questions, which are for the 8th, 10th, and 12th grade surveys, not the 6th grade survey, because I know that was a concern for some parents. And then the other concern that came up, and I actually spoke with the consultant with Bach Harrison that provides the survey instrument. In fact, I put together a full presentation for the board. So if that's something you want to see at any given juncture in time, it's ready to roll. But she provided a lot of gateway information. And the second thing that parents have issues with is just the sheer simple fact of some parents don't want their kids answering questions about drugs or alcohol or other health-related measures, right? And so as we've administered it in the past, we've provided the survey to the parents in advance. They have to opt in order for their kids to participate in it. And even as the kids are there taking the survey on the day of, if they choose not to answer a question, they don't have to, or if they choose to say, hey, I don't want to do this, like they're not forced to do it. So
is the Ohio State survey similar to?
So
yours?
Wendy could probably best speak to that because our Title I schools utilize that. And it just became part of our roundtable discussion in looking at culture and climate surveys. Maybe that's a component that we could look to utilize to expand that to get more information from our schools. So
It doesn't ask for a lot of information about at-risk behaviors. It asks more about, do you have an adult at the school that you feel like you can connect with? Do you feel like you can go to your teacher for help? Do you feel like your teacher believes in you? Do you feel like the homework is reasonable? Like
perception.
It's a lot more just about how they're perceiving their school experience more than it is about I've engaged in these particular activities. So in that way, I think you would have fewer parents being upset by it. And Amber talked about that we actually have the capacity to administer it inside our district, and our people would be analyzing the data. So we're not sending it out to some outside entity to do it. So there would be some advantages to that.
And we would still make sure that parents had access to
Yes.
see what the survey was.
A couple other things with the Sharps too, and I spoke to this, but one of those is it helps us look at our preventative measures at Canyons Family Ed Center. What are the hot topics? What are the items that we need to be focusing on to help our kids and parents in our community based upon the needs that are being identified? And then the second element, which I already spoke to, is we have about $10 million roped into Sharps survey data and grant funding. So if that was ever a thing that was considered to be taken away or taken off the table, it might put some funding streams in jeopardy. So
Board, I'm gonna suggest that maybe we bring the topic of these two surveys back so the administration can prepare information and give us an update from USVE and then have a more robust discussion about it at a future meeting, if that's okay.
Yes, can you just remind us, I know we had last year, BJ, we had a big discussion about this in a general board meeting. I don't know if you saw that, but that's when we started actually mailing out the survey to parents and stuff. So remind me, what's the date when this?
So we would need to incorporate it in March, and we have to give Bachman Harrison at least a month's leeway time in advance.
Yeah.
They would prefer more time than that if we can provide it, but they said at a minimum, they need a month's advance notice to be able to work with this.
That helps with timing. Thank you.
Yes, thanks.
And 40 out of our 41 school districts utilize it. That helps as well.
Great, thank you. All right, let's move to the Operations Committee. For their report, I will turn the time over to Mr. Leon Wilcox, Business Administrator.
Thank you. A couple things. I appreciate Mont incorporating the term budget and glory, same sentence.
You left the important parts out though.
Both those two are. Well, I do hang out. There's no outside of Mont, there are no accountants. So I kind of hang out with accountants. One of my friends told me, the definition of an accountant is someone who solves a problem you didn't know you had in a way you don't understand. Understand this. We'll go quickly. I do appreciate everybody who attended our committee meeting last week. 100% appreciate Nancy, Amanda, Mont for their comments, and everybody on the staff who also participated. See the impact statement there. The role, responsibilities, and accountability measures for all CSD employees are clearly defined against the work of CSD strategic vision. And CSD departments and committees will have a clear understanding of their purpose, reporting, and organizational structure. Some of the things we talked about were the policies. I mean, the current trainings that we have a lot. Props go to all our directors, Steve and his team for setting these up. Critical policy, we call it NEO, new employee orientation, where they come in, they learn about payroll, they learn about insurance, they learn about IT, they learn about all these things that, you know, you just need to know when your first week's on the job. We have position-based training for our bus drivers, our custodians, our health and safety advocates who used to be called hall monitors, but now are called health and safety advocates. Again, trying to mesh everything into the plan. We have peaks the first week of school for our new teachers. We have the Canyons Support Academy. Some of the short-term initiatives that we want to do here is we want to make sure all the training's aligned with the strategic plan. And so we also want to make sure, and we appreciate the board, well, that's the fourth point there. We'll get to that. We want to make sure departments and committees align with the plan. And that includes every external committee. We have all, you know, Susan, Charlie, some of us serve on external committees and make sure we are mapped to the board's goals. We need to make sure every employee know that they're valued here at Cajun. We talked about that at length here. You know how important they are. We need to create a web platform. We want to look at creating a web platform via Frontline, which you approved at last board meeting, where we can do recorded trainings so employees can look at that online. It's so hard. Lots of our employees are just on a 180-day contract. School's in 180 days. How do you bring them into training? So we want to look at doing things like that. Going back to this one here, you know, this one, we need to make sure our employees are valued. Susan and I went to an economic summit at a district we will not name, Jordan, this morning. But it was really good. And one of the speakers said, you know, we're still at this 2 and 3% unemployment rate. It's going to keep staying that low. You know, he showed a couple of charts of the labor participation force, and with the baby boomers, you know, retiring out of the system, there's not enough people coming in to replace. You know, there's quite a gap there from what it was a few years ago. And he says that's not going away. So you need to make sure you value your employees. These help wanted signs everywhere we go, you know, are going to stay there in the foreseeable future. We hope that you know, resonates with our employees that how important they are. The next way is this is always good to have the account talk about communication, right? So CSD provides student, educators, employees, and parents the opportunity to engage in two-way communication. I wrote that twice. I don't know why.
Very important.
Very important. We want to focus on these things: in-person communication, written. I mean, we do customer service, all kinds of information nights. You know, here we have Popcorn Friday. I know all the schools have their own version of team building things. We want to make sure there's good, solid team building flowing out. The written communication, the surveys that we talked about, and then the technology ones. Parent Square is the big one, right? That we've brought online. So we're grateful for that, as well as our podcast, CSD TV, Kirsten and Rick's, you know, really emphasize getting that out there in this new media streaming world that we live in. Some of the short-term initiatives that we want to build best practices within Parent Square and unifying our communication plans, enhance our school web manager training. Each school has a web manager that we pay a stipend to. So we want to make sure their websites are up to date. You know, we always visit school websites. I find myself a lot on school websites. Employee morale, anything we can do to increase morale. We thought about just the old-fashioned suggestion box, right? You know, that you can just hang in the break room and somebody can slip a piece of paper in there or something like that. School-wide events. We need to announce our accomplishments and celebrate our successes. This is a big one. you know, in today's world. I know the school accountability reports are embargoed. So I'm not gonna tell you which school I was at, but I visited a school last week. And they had got an A grade. They had never got an A grade. I go to the principal, congratulations on this A grade. And she was so grateful that I got acknowledged because she said, we've worked so hard as a team. My teachers have worked so hard to try to get an A. So I hope we bring that back to our teachers. Let them know how much we appreciate them, all the hard work, as well as all our custodians. We're down 20 custodians. It was custodian appreciation day last week. We're still down there. Our bus drivers, application workers, everybody, we want to make sure they know how much we appreciate them. With that, any questions or any of the board members on the committee, or if you want to just turn it back to you.
Thank you so much. Let's see, Amanda, do you have anything to add or highlight?
Yeah, I'd like to just underscore, like, one of the big focuses of the meeting was the importance of making sure that all members of staff, like at school level, at district level, have the opportunity to provide feedback on a regular basis. And so, yeah, the comment box was a part of that, but we also talked, you know, what else does that look like? Like, what kind of mechanisms do we have to make sure that how things are functioning for people on their level is communicated effectively. So.
Yeah, and I want to just point out also, we discussed this idea of mapping CSD departments and committees so that they align with the strategic vision and board goals. And because there was some discussion that we could be duplicating effort in ways that if we can identify that, we can streamline. And a lot of what we've talked about tonight has been about streamlining. How can we do things better, not more, but better? And so that's kind of some of the purpose of this idea of mapping the CSD departments and committees. And how to go about doing that and what that looks like. We haven't really gotten into that level of detail, but I do think it is something that's important, and it may take a year or two to actually get that figured out. But yeah, and then of course the communication is so critical. So any clarifying questions, board, on this committee report? Holly and then Steve.
When we're talking about build best practices with Parent Square and unifying school communication plans, I've had a lot of feedback about Parent Square. Can you just tell me what's that entail?
I may look at Kirsten.
Well, I think
They're far more the
I
expert.
think the idea is to just make sure that both parents and employees who are using the tool know how to use it to best effect. So for example, there are ways as a parent where you can batch the communication so that you're not, feeling as if you're overloaded with communications every minute of the day. Same goes for the schools and the teachers, how often should you be sending out a batch of communications for the week? What kinds of communications should be going out via Parent Square? How should you be marrying those communications with different visual aids? And then how can you amplify those communications on your other tools, from your social media channels to your websites and et cetera. So
That's awesome. Actually, that's all the feedback I'm getting from parents is, wow, this is a lot of Parent Square. And so being able to simplify that and batch it and what's best when to use it, I think that's great. As far as the employee feedback, I would love to see a systemized approach. If there's some little thing on CSD website, but I would love to see a really nice, slick way for our staff to submit suggestions. If it's about their teacher coach, their first year teacher here in Canyons, they have questions about their, micro credentialing, whatever it may be. I just think it would be so great if there was some slick way to for our staff to be able to.
Just
Yeah, sorry.
under the discussion of the suggestion box, you might want to suggest what you'll do after you get the suggestions.
Yes.
And put together a process, because just to get suggestions just causes more problems if you don't do something about it. The other question is as I'm walking door to door, I'm finding that a lot of our individuals are empty nesters and they're seniors. And we really need to figure out in our communication how we can involve them with the McCanyons family. They have no idea the value the school district has. They know they're paying taxes. I asked them, I said, well, I don't know what you guys are doing, and I don't know, it might be nice if we're trying to, especially if you ever go for any other tax increases or any other things that happen, that we actually have them part of the family, that they see some value other than, well, these kids will eventually pay my social security, maybe. I mean, so it'd be interesting to get some kind of communication out to them, and maybe not just mail. Sometimes they get mad that we mail things and how much that costs. But that may be some of it that they can get on a list, and we can be advertised to them that they can get on this list and get the main stuff that's going on. We have a large group that's disenfranchised from this district. We just have the parents got the students, but about half of our parents don't have students now. And we probably need to try to figure out how to involve them so they feel part of our community. I mean, if you weren't on the board and I'm on the board, I wouldn't know what's going on. And so it'd be, and so we'd say, what's going on in the school district? I don't know.
But even as an empty nester, I think it's critical that we know that our school district is successful.
Yeah.
Because, as you said, we're all paying taxes.
Yeah, the same if you have no kids or 8 kids.
And if I know that my neighborhood school is doing well at preparing kids, I'm okay with that. If my neighborhood school sucks, I'm not okay with that.
Most of the time it's scary because you ask them, do you have any questions? I don't have any knowledge to ask any questions. That's pretty bad. How about taxes? You gonna raise my taxes? So.
We do one communication a year that is targeted to taxpayers that goes out in the mail. It does attempts to do it anyway, exactly what Mont's talking about there and you're bringing up here. And we do that once a year. Maybe we could do it more often.
Yeah.
So that would go to everybody that pays taxes in our district, whether or not they have children in the district.
We send it out right before tax season.
I don't know when that-
In the summer, actually, summer.
Everything we have to
We maybe ought
do,
to-
we make sure our schools are absolutely wonderful. Second thing we do is let everybody know how wonderful we are.
Okay, Amanda has a question for this group, and then we'll have about 15 minutes that we can talk about some of these points that we want to talk about as a board.
So to that point, Steve, I actually, when I was knocking doors, I had a little bit of the same experience. Who rated me for the fact that during COVID, we didn't reach out to the retired community better to ask for help and to be able to provide support for kids that were doing online learning. She was a retired teacher. And she said, you could have used me. And I do think that there is a large group of people out there that if they understood what kind of help we do need in this schools, whether it's just reading with kids or coming and volunteering in other capacities, I think we could do a better job.
They're looking for that. They
Yeah.
want to be involved. They just don't know how.
Well, and I even, today, I had a conversation with someone, her youngest is about to graduate, and she said, maybe I should come work for free for the district. And I was like, there's a lot of things we can do. So I wonder whether or not there's some way to provide clearinghouse information saying, if you have this many hours a week, or you have even 2 hours a week that you have for extra time, here's a list of things that you could do to contribute to the students in Canyon School District.
Which,
We do actually, on our volunteer system,
Uh-huh.
we ask volunteers to sign up if they are willing to volunteer anywhere in the district. And then we can send to them different opportunities that schools let us know. And we did coordinate with the cities and the senior centers who said, please keep your little germ people away from us during COVID because our people are very fragile. And so we did, not to individuals, obviously, but to groups of people that could have volunteered. And if you remember, at one point, we weren't really allowing volunteers in the schools anyway.
That's true.
So
She was talking more about we could have helped in the neighborhoods, if you realize that there are people there that can provide support, especially to working parents. But anyway.
Great
Okay,
idea,
great.
just-
Thank you. Okay, so I'm gonna just list a few things that I wrote down. I noted from all the reports that these committees were specifically asking for board direction on what to do. So the creation of a CSD specific portrait of a graduate, how to better meet advanced learners' needs, CTE and diverse pathways, the FTE distribution and stipends, and then value-added measures and wellness for educators, and streamlining, correcting duty-free time, things like that, and then this better communication. loop. So, right, and we're not gonna solve all of those right now, but really, or let's talk about maybe if these are things that we want to have continued conversation and work on and have assign it to a committee for them to dive a little bit deeper and then again report back. We would assign to a
Those
committee.
questions to one of the big committees, we just
Yeah.
develop another committee.
No, one of the four committees.
That's
Cause I mean, there still needs to be a lot of work done and.
Yeah.
We could sit here and, talk and spin wheels, but we really need to kind of have some of those wheels start hitting the ground, so. The concept of a CSD specific portrait of a graduate, are we generally okay with that idea?
I think it needs to happen.
Okay,
That we say committee. And as we can always add to it. So I said we can try to step it up, they've got more diversity of education backgrounds and stuff.
okay, so we're generally okay with pursuing that a little bit further, doing a little bit deeper dive and assigning that to or just encouraging or asking the high quality learning committee to work further on that one.
Yes.
Okay. And then the advanced learner needs, that was addressed in 2 committee reports. And the high quality learning and access and opportunity. I think, it fits equally well in either one. And then also this.
Well, I want to add to that
Yes.
one. 'Cause this is my pet peeve. We do a lot with VLI and we do a lot with. It's not called gifted and talented, I'm sorry, it's called. Fafsa. And yet, that's not where our scores. And those are not the kids that we're not getting to. The kids we're not getting to are the other kids who have another language, but they're not being able to learn 2 languages to be able to get the explicit instruction those 2 languages get, like in French and English and in Chinese and English. We have all these kiddos out there who speak Spanish, but they're not getting the explicit instruction in Spanish and English. And it's already been proven over and over and over again that if their first language doesn't increase, their second language is not going to follow. And yet we never do anything about it. We just sit there and keep saying, well, we got to do something about those kids. We got to do something about those kids. So now we're saying, oh, well, we got to do something about those other kids. So the really high achievers. Do you know those high achievers will achieve no matter what we do? They will do it and their parents will do it. Those other little ones that are the lower achievers, their parents believe that the teachers are the rulers of the classroom and they don't and shouldn't even have to go in and ask questions or do things or talk to the teacher because that teacher should be taking care of all of it. So it really bothers me when we're sitting here going, oh no, we're going to train people to take on these advanced kids. Well, then start training people to take on the lower kids because we do a horrible job at it, just to be honest. They're still sitting where they are in the RISE test. They're still sitting where they are in the Acadience test. They're still sitting where they are forever because we never get around to, I don't know. I mean, we put money into it, Title I schools make money, but that doesn't mean we're helping them achieve what they need to achieve.
So with that, how about if we just kind of expand that assignment to this strategic initiative that was talked about in the access and opportunity to adequately address the needs of all students at all schools. And make it, and then ask the committee to kind of break it down into what's currently happening and where there might be gaps, looking at subgroups.
Say
Yes,
something.
and then Holly.
It's hard because I can see how it's really well straddled between those two committees, right? Because while the access and opportunity is a lot about how are we currently serving them, the high quality learning is going to be like where we decide the how about how to address it. Does that make sense? Like, how is it we're going to effectively engage kids that are bored? And while I can totally appreciate where you're coming from, Clarion, like we also have an issue with parents going elsewhere in part because they feel like their kids aren't being challenged. I mean, I've talked to more parents than I can shake a stick at about that. And so that is part of a retention issue and we do need to think about it. And there are creative ways, and this is where why I think it belongs at least maybe in a future date in high quality learning. Maybe we kick it back to them later. How do we effectively do that? And you know, that all of those kids have access to it. So
Maybe the first step is to gather the information, identify what's currently happening and where there's some gaps, and then revisit that as a board and then decide next step. Let's see, Holly and then Mont.
I would just love to keep them separate. I think, you know, in access and opportunity, we had a bunch about multi-language learners and 504s. But I would like to discuss each set of learners separately because of exactly what has been said, you know, with strategic enrollment, it is an issue. It is an issue that if you go to a certain elementary school that isn't DLI or isn't SALTA, there is no pathway for an advanced learner. And we have several of those elementary schools in our district. And so that's why there is an issue and why parents are looking elsewhere. It just opens that door. If they have to drive somewhere, then they say, well, I don't know, is Canyons the best or is there other places? And so I think as we look at strategic enrollment, it would be wise to have them separated, not taking away from multi-language learners. Clarion, I totally understand what you're saying. And I think that needs to be an emphasis too, but I just rather add it rather than lump everything together because I think the needs are so different. And I actually think our access is completely different too, as far as what we provide at each building.
Okay, come on.
While I will agree with Clarion with the kids that are coming in, trying to learn multi-languages, and if they're still learning their primary language, it's difficult if they're not moving forward. We have a lot of resources already that are going to those that are underachieving for whatever the reason may be. But I think it's just absolutely horrible. I might even call it immoral. That if you have a student that checks into kindergarten as a new student and they test them and they find out they're reading on a second or third grade level, and then they're able to do math computations similar to that we push those kids off and we don't have something in place to challenge them all the way through. There is nothing that will create boredom faster for a student than not being challenged at school. And so I think that we have to make sure that we're providing adequate resources at all levels of achievement, regardless of the age of the student, regardless of socioeconomic status, and regardless of what community they live in the district.
Okay, so with that, which committee do you think we should assign that to? Because that's a pretty big assignment to figure all that out. And
Quality learning is because that's exactly what we're talking about is high quality. Access and opportunity is, to me, more teaching parents what is available for their students and making sure that each child has an advocate to push on their behalf to get them where they need to be.
I would kind of go back to what you said, Nancy, is start it in that other committee because you guys are gathering all the information, identify the gaps, and then give it to high quality. Because if we're working on portrait of graduate, that is a big job. I mean, if that's gonna be our focus, that will take a lot of time. So maybe it's good if that committee can gather that and then.
Assess what we already have first and then kick it to high quality to
Come
strategize.
up with some proposals.
That works.
Everyone okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay, the CTE pathways, and I think it's also about diverse pathways, and again. So from our discussion and presentation, that feels more like it is kind of a communication thing, a lot, you know. Getting parents aware of what is available and.
Somewhat, but I think we haven't developed it all from the whole system. We've got pockets, but we haven't embraced that whole philosophy that of pathways for all of our students. Should we? I don't know, but that's versus. I think we need to communicate that for what we have, but a lot of the stuff is it could be for all kids that get in there that in high school that says, so what's your pathway? So that determines your classes and determines a lot of stuff that's going on.
So suggestions, what we do with this one, I know every year in February, it's CTE month, we have a report from our CTE department and director. Is this something that maybe we can put on them, or do we want to keep it in one of these four? Mont and then Amanda.
You know, I kind of get hung up a little bit when you start talking pathways and having a kid funneled towards a pathway early on. Because, gosh, I think it's so important they have the opportunity to experience a lot of different disciplines and find out what goes for them. I mean, I was thoroughly convinced when I was in fourth grade, I was gonna be an electrical engineer. I hit college and it took me about 2 quarters to figure out that wasn't gonna work for me. And if somebody would have put me on that pathway at a young age, I would have had a very miserable life. I happen to just say, gosh, everybody winds up in business one way or another. They need to understand something. I took a couple of business classes, what everybody else said was really, really hard. I thought, God, I get this stuff. It's pretty easy. And so, you know, I struggle with the idea of a pathway, but I think one thing we could do better than what we're doing is you look at CTE. I know that we've had a couple, for example, electrical contractors that have contacted us and said, give me your kids that are interested in becoming electricians. We will train them, we'll put them in an apprenticeship, we will pay for a couple of years of college, we'll get them out with an associate's degree and be journeymen.
$80,000.
Yep. And they make a good living being a journeyman electrician. And if they've got some business background and they go out and they start their own company, my gosh, they'll make more money than than somebody anywhere else working for somebody. The opportunities are out there, and they also come out, by the way, without any student debt. And so I think that we need to communicate better than we have been opportunities that are there. And even though we keep saying college and career ready, I feel like our district really, really pushes the college ready and career ready is kind of secondary. Maybe it's because it's mentioned second. But there are a lot of very noble professions out there other than being a doctor, an attorney, or whatever you want to be. There are things you can do without a 4-year college degree and earn a respectable living and be a good member of a community.
Hey, Amanda?
I agree with Mott. And part of me wonders, I'm a little bit nervous of sending it to just the CTE committee. I feel like with something this important, I want us as board members to be able to still kind of work at at this because we're the ones that are representing the public and kind of have a pulse on what the public is doing and items like. Before we send it to just an internal committee, I feel like we still need to have some representation on those. And because part of the strategic plan and the point behind it is that you're thinking outside the box, right? We're getting to this place where, all right, what have we not done before? I don't want us to recycle old ideas. Like I want us to be able to say, okay, we're coming at this with a fresh perspective. What if we just put together with public input and how can we make this more vibrant? So, okay.
Quick comment. Maybe we just CTE and put it in your presentation so we can educate. It's pretty complex. But
Yes.
But even when I went to college, I had a career. Just to go to college, you could waste a lot of money. Now I changed the career when I got in there, but I picked my college based upon the career. So there's not a separation. There's career without going to college and there's a career with going to college. And either one is a career. And that's why we go to college. We don't just go to college, just go to college.
So
We go with something in mind.
how about on this one, if we, like I said, February is usually when we get a report from the department. How about if we schedule more time and so have a more extensive report and then have the more discussion on it, superintendent.
Just to add to this too, this is a yes and question, but we really need to look at the CTEC building facility just in its wear and tear and where we want to go with that. And that also ties into the point and actually what we do there. And it might, it may be a time, we might be in this window of time where we look at this kind of as a interdisciplinary opportunity, maybe similar to what Davis has done with Catalyst. And we align to industry and it's a yes, and it's not taking away from what CTEC is or does, but kind of to the point about this diverse learning pathways and attracting students to the district. Maybe it's time that we have that conversation. And I think that's a long range planning piece as well.
The combination.
So board, are you okay if we ask the administration to kind of prepare for February, do a really big, broad, deep dive
Across
into
that.
CTE? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, and then let's see, there was also the idea of FTE distribution and stipends. I think we probably need a lot more information on that before we can even really decide
Yes.
what to do. Should we? Yeah. Access to opportunity, they're the ones that brought it up on that one. Okay, and then value-added measures and wellness for educators, streamlining, supportive of having human-centered supports. Community, again, kind of looking a little deeper into that and bringing back.
Yeah, I think they should do a wellness room like they do for children, but have a
Bring
wellness
some
room
ideas.
for adults that they can go into and get a massage during lunch.
Soda fountain.
So Glorian, I just did that for my department. My youngest sister is a massage therapist, so for a department meeting, I paid her personally, not through district funds. For each of my team members to go in and get a 10-15 massage.
Okay, so I need you all to put your hands over your ears. Stan's dispenser would be awesome Sundays.
Okay, so we'll have a human-centered supports, work on that and bring back some specific maybe proposals and ideas. And then the last one was kind of communication, feedback and mapping the committees. Should we have operations continue working on that, bring back some specifics? Okay. Did we miss anything?
Not a chance.
Okay.
I had,
Okay.
oh, sorry, thought I had with that, the superintendent's report this last week and talking to elementary teachers, just wondering with that value added and, duty protected time and things, if we could, I don't know what the timeline's gonna be on this, but I'd be really interested in that human-centered supports. So somehow, I don't know, talk to cabinet, but see how we can breathe a little relief sooner rather than later down to those teachers. That's something we could.
So one, just to that conversation, well, a couple of things, calendar committee is going to be operating soon. and there'll be a report to the board soon. And with that, I think just clarity on exactly what our contract entails. So we talked about some of the misinformation that's in that, but to that point, I think there are some things that we could look at that would help, that the board could consider to help address some of those issues.
So did they,
Even if that could be a
just
board
a
meeting coming.
question on that too, did the state lessen the expectations for the evaluation? Because I know in that other place that I live half the time, they're cutting out half of the evaluation's expectations.
We're still
So-
waiting, is my understanding. Steve, is that?
It's, so they were working on changing up the standards. I finally found a copy, but I don't know if it's ever been approved yet. It's dated August of this year. There's a committee at the state that's currently working on looking at evaluations, and we actually have a presentation next board meeting. But they haven't changed state law, and board rule has not changed yet. So if they're removing things, I don't know how they're being in compliance.
Talking about removing the whole.
Okay, well, we'll
That's
hear
it.
more about that next
Yeah.
week.
So next meeting, if it's on our agenda, then we can talk about,
To
okay,
that point.
how to simplify.
How to
Right.
simplify to that point.
We're doing above and beyond with
Yeah.
our
Okay.
district assignment.
Okay, all right. I think that wraps up this because you probably have all noticed we have some very special guests that have joined us. And we're so excited.
That's one
Yes.
question. When do you want this information ready? Because most of our meetings are not until
Online.
December. So what would be the next reporting that you're asking?
So probably January.
Perfect. Thank you.
January?
I'm sorry to interrupt.
I mean, unless committees feel like they can meet sooner than December.
January sounds really good.
I think
January's good.
Happy to meet again, honestly.
Say the truth.
I don't wanna lose momentum, especially on the portrait of graduate. I think that would be interesting.
So,
November.
Meet in November.
how about
November's out.
superintendent, will you talk with cabinet and figure out a reasonable timeline? I think the board is, anxious, but we want to be reasonable about that.
The cabinet can use their no if they want to.
I want to burn out cabinets too.
Okay, all right. Thank you all. That was really a great discussion. So we're very excited with the start of a new school year. We have a new student advisory council, and I will ask Dr. Dowdle if you will take a minute and introduce our student council members for this year.
Well, good. So we have a busy night with our students tonight, so a number of them could not come. One is an FBLA officer at the conference, one has a soccer practice, one's at the choir concert, two are sick. And a couple, I'm not sure yet, hope they'll still arrive. But that's to be expected with the students like this, a very busy schedule. I just met them out there. I can already tell they're great, wonderful people. And they have some beautiful names that I don't know that I can pronounce very well. So I'm gonna ask them to introduce themselves, tell us what school they're from, what their name is. And we had talked about having them mention something of interest. Would you still like them to do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
All right.
Hi, I'm Hayden McDaniel. I'm a senior at Brighton High School. I really love cars and I have 6 pet frogs. I think frogs are super cool. Hi, Miss Timothy. I haven't seen you in a couple of years. It's good to see you. But yeah, I'm a senior at Brighton High School and I'm really excited to be sharing this opportunity and have this experience. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Caitlin Isbell. I'm a senior at Jordan, and I really like camping and spending.
I'm Zach Scheffner, and I'm senior at Alta High School. I really like playing sports and camping and being outside. So that's me.
I'm Chesney Chin. I'm a senior at Brighton High School, and I'm on the Brighton Girls Basketball team.
I'm Felicity Norman. I'm a senior at Alta, and I enjoy swimming, hiking, just like anything outdoors. Hi, my name is Maya Odinger. I go to Jordan High School, and I like to study films. That's my. Hi, my name is Layla Hamida. I'm a junior at Brighton High School, and I love animals. Hi, I'm Carissa Jameson. I go to Hillcrest, and I'm on student government there. I'm Neil and Cameron. I go to Diamond Ridge, and I like classical literature.
Hello, I'm Sam Martin. I'm at Hillcrest High School and I enjoy running and learning.
Hi, I'm Henry Horsley. I'm from Corner Canyon and I am also on Student Gov.
Hi, I'm Samantha Harkness. I'm a senior at Corner Canyon and I like dance and I work at Java Juice. Hi, I'm Kayla Welker and I'm a senior at Corner Canyon and I play for the high school team and soccer for the high school team and I just play soccer for club.
Hi, I'm Ian Colton. I'm a senior at Corner Canyon and I'm really interested in theater and actually just had the opportunity to compete at the Shakespeare competition this past weekend. So
You took first place.
You did. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you for sharing a little bit of your interests, what you're interested in, and we hope that you will find this experience serving as the Student Advisory Council for the board, that you'll find it to be enjoyable and informative and something that is very meaningful to you as you in your high school careers. So you've probably already been told we'll meet once a month for the next 6 months. And that meeting will be conducted by us as board members. So we're not all strangers to when we come to the meetings, and not all of us will come. 3 of us come to each meeting. But let's just take a minute, board, if you want to introduce yourself and maybe the area that you represent. And if you want to, there's something of interest too, so they'll get to know us. Holly, would you like to start?
Okay, I'm Holly Nybar, and actually I'm in District 7, so Corner Canyon resides in where I'm at. I have 7 sons, so that's a little unusual. And you might know some of them. Ty Nybar graduated last year.
Kids.
Yeah, and Isaac Nybar is a junior, just a year below you guys. And yeah, I love, this is one of my very favorite things as the assignments to the board. It's super great to talk with you guys and get your perspective. And I just really enjoyed it in the past. So look forward to talking with you.
Okay, I'm Amber Schill and I represent Cotton Heights and Brighton High School. And I have 4 kids and 3 have already graduated from Brighton. And then I have 1 that is a junior. And I just had a super fun time last week at the homecoming game. I don't know if you guys were there, but it was crazy because we were down 33, I think 17 at halftime, and came back to win 47-33. So
Wow.
it was just a super fun, exciting game. And anyway, it was fun to just see how the kids and their homecoming dance pictures too.
So my name is Steve Riggle. I'm in District 5, which is sort of the center section, mostly sandy, and it covers about every school other than Quarter Canyon. We got kids going everywhere. I have 5 kids. They're all meat diggers, so they all graduate from that. And I was also a Madrigal, and I did Shakespeare. And if you want to borrow my green tights, let me know.
Okay, I'm Nancy Tingy, and the area that I represent is kind of the south end of the Brighton area and north end of Alta, and with some of Jordan in between. So, but my 5 children graduated from Brighton High School, and one of the things that I really like to do is volunteer in elementary schools. And I know you guys are all in high school, but elementary schools are pretty amazing places to be. They're kind of my happy place.
So I'm Amanda Oakes and I cover District 6, which is East Sandy and part of Draper. So Draper Park Middle is in my area. So all those kids feed into Corner Canyon. I have 3 kids that have gone to Corner Canyon, one that just barely graduated. And then Bryant Oakes. So a couple of these boys, my kids have grown up with, and Monet Oakes. And also Alta resides in my area. And I have to say, like, you guys are going to be tripped out, but by the end of the year, we're all going to see you on the street, like be like, hey, like, we'll remember you. Don't be freaked out. Like, we actually, like, the Student Advisory Council, I love being able to sit and listen to your perspectives. Every time I learn so much from the kids whenever they come. And so really, I'm so excited to hear the discussions that you have and the thoughts and perspective that you're going to provide us. It's really valuable. So we're really grateful you're here.
Go ahead.
So I'm Claire Arnold and I'm in Area 4, which is Jordan High School. I am an outlier and I know you all know what that means. So I have 9 children and none of them went to high school in any of the schools here, just so you know. The reason I came on the board is because I really wanted to try to make a positive impact in what happens in education because I do teach. And I love children. So that's why I'm here. And the thing I like to do most is camp and fish. I gave a hunting up a long time ago. I hate walking around those mountains looking for those stupid deer. They know where the fence is and they jump it every time it's deer season if you've gone deer hunting. Anyway, so, and I'd love to swim too.
Mont Milliberg, I represent precinct 1, which takes in most of Midvale. I used to take in all of Midvale, but through redistricting, Irene gets a good portion of Midvale now. I represent Hillcrest High School. I have a half a dozen kids and all 6 of them graduated from Hillcrest. And long, long ago in a galaxy far, far away, I graduated from Hillcrest High School as well. You are known as the advisory board. And if you look at the word advisory, that means that we are looking for advice. Your input that you give us is taken very, very seriously. And it helps us formulate and shape the direction of the district. So I'm excited to listen to what you have to say because you are a whole lot closer to high school than we are.
Like about 50
years.
Like about 50 years.
Yeah, like about a half a century.
Agree now. Not all of us.
For me.
Just kidding.
About ourselves.
I'm just kidding.
Okay, thank you. And so to that, as a couple of the board members have mentioned, before each meeting, Dr. Dowdle will get in touch with you, either him or Tamara. I don't know if she's here tonight, but
Practicing so far, right?
Yeah.
She'll continue to do that and I'll work through it.
so prior to each meeting, we'll get some thought questions for you to work on and think about and bring your thoughts to the discussion at our meeting. And in doing that, just, keep in mind that you have been selected to represent the students at your school. So take those thought questions seriously and don't just share your experience and your ideas, but talk to some of your friends or think about other groups and other kids and what their experiences might be so that you can bring that perspective as well to our conversation. So we really are grateful that you're willing to serve this year. Thank you for coming tonight. And so with this, we'll adjourn our study session and we'll reconvene the business meeting in about 15 minutes. And in this time, in this break, we'd like to just take a minute and get to know you better. And we've got a little bit of snacks here for you all. And we can just visit for a few minutes. Okay, thank you.
We're almost.
Okay, I think we're ready to begin. All right, good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the business meeting of the Canyons Board of Education. Today is October 4th, 2022. We are meeting at the district office located at 9361 South, 300 East in Sandy, Utah. I'd like to also, in addition to welcoming those of you here in the boardroom, welcome those that are tuning in through the live stream of this meeting. We appreciate your engagement with us and thank you for your patience. We're a few minutes late getting started. I'll just kind of give the reason for that is we've just this evening met the students that will be serving on the Student Advisory Council with the board this school year. And that's just always such a wonderful event. And it was so fun to meet each of them. So first item on the agenda is to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting. I will ask for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda for October 4th, 2022 as written.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion? I'll second that. Thank you. Any discussion to the motion? Okay, seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion passes. And we'll note that Mrs. Oakes isn't present at the time of the vote. She will be joining us shortly. Next is we will be led in the Pledge of Allegiance by Albion Middle School Principal Molly Hart. And then Principal Hart will share with us some school highlights from Albion Middle School.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, thank you all for having Albion as your spotlight tonight. Albion in 3 minutes is really, really hard. On one hand, we could list our musical programs, our huge musical that we just did auditions for. It's Fiddler on the Roof. Everybody is invited. In January, we could list our lunchtime intramural program, our award-winning chess and debate teams, our super popular book club, our huge sewing guild, our well-attended tutoring support, our Mastering Middle School program. There's lots of things going on at Albion. But these are simply the results of something bigger going on at Albion that the staff has been building for a long time. My current favorite quote is "Clear is kind, unclear is unkind." That quote is Brene Brown, but the sentiment is best illustrated in a really good book called Radical Candor by Kim Scott. Albion's secret sauce is our clarity. We are clear on our expectations for adults and students alike, and that clarity gives us the time and space to do some really super cool stuff. Clarity is efficient. In the cafeteria, the assistants give clear feedback on student behavior and cleanliness, and if earned, the students get fun Fridays. They get all request music within reason, games and other fun lunchtime activities, including intramurals. Clarity in the classroom teaching is supported through the clear expectations, processes, and accountability of our PLCs. Teachers are clear with students regarding learning. All teachers set success criteria. We utilize the school-wide grading scheme. And if students aren't learning, we have a clear system of interventions and supports staffed by certified teachers. We also have supports for teachers when they get stuck and need a colleague to work with. And finally, we have clear, open lines of communication with parents and families. We work very hard to listen, propose ideas, have opportunities for involvement, and let parents take the lead on initiatives as well. We are far from perfect. We are working on integrating more rigorous writing across the curriculum. We're working on how to do more intervening up in difficulty, and we're challenging ourselves to offer the best possible learning experience for the newest Albion Knights, our 16 plus students who are learning English while they are navigating adolescence. You see, Albion teachers are fantastic, not because of what they do, but how they do it. There is a clear Albion way, and that culture yields fantastic results. The teachers, students, and families make Albion, not a program, not one activity. And that is the most important thing about Albion. Thank you for the opportunity to serve Albion and for the opportunity to share why it is always a great day to be a Knight.
Thank you so much, Principal Hart. We appreciate all the wonderful things that are happening at Albion, and we appreciate your leadership there and your staff and all of the faculty and the students and the parents. Will you please extend our appreciation to them? Thank you. Okay, we will now turn time over to Jeff Haney and Kirsten Stewart from the Communications Department for some recognitions.
President Tingy, thank you for this time to recognize the achievements of students, faculty, and staff in the Canyon School District. Those who are recognized tonight will receive a letter of commendation from the board and the superintendent. Our first honorees tonight, Julie, I don't think this is working. And there we go. While she's getting that prepared for us, we want to recognize the students from Jordan, Hillcrest, Corner Canyon, and Alta High. Now, in the words of Shakespeare, at least paraphrased, they came, saw, and overcame. Now, student musicians, actors, and dancers from those schools, again, that's Jordan, Hillcrest, Corner Canyon, they won big over the weekend at the 46th annual Shakespeare competition at Southern Utah University. Now that brings up a question, to brag or not to brag. That is indeed the question, and we will brag on them tonight. Jordan and Hillcrest High Schools won first place sweepstakes trophies in music and acting, respectively, in their divisions. Corner Canyon High School took second place sweepstakes, but also they have the student Ian Colton, who you met earlier, who had the highest monologue score of the entire festival, and he won a scholarship for that. So congratulations to Ian. Now, as a writer once wrote, be not afraid of greatness. Some are born great, some achieve greatness, and some have greatness thrust upon them. Of course, that is Shakespeare. Now, this is Hillcrest's 9th sweepstakes victory in the last 13 years. It's equivalent to a state championship, if not a national championship. There were more than 16 schools, more than 100 students who participated in this year's festival. Also, as a bragging point for Hillcrest High School, this is the 5th consecutive year that the Hillcrest stage crew won first place in the Tech Olympics, and the 5th year in a row that the school won in ensembles. Now, Jordan High placed in 3 out of the 4 categories to win the overall sweepstakes in music. They also won 3rd place in monologues, and their dance team won 1st place in the dance ensemble. Now, in addition to the sweepstakes and the awards already mentioned, Hillcrest also won in duo trio scene, 2nd place duo trio scene, 2nd place monologue, 1st place lighting, props, tech portfolio, and 2nd place dance duo. Now, the Chargers, in addition to their 2nd place sweepstakes, won 2nd place ensemble scene and a scholarship for dance and another for acting. They also won 3rd place overall sweepstakes in music. Now, not to be forgotten, Alta High School also competed, and they won 3rd place sweepstakes in their division as well. So congratulations to all of the students who competed in last weekend's 46th annual Shakespeare competition at Southern Utah University. We anticipate this string of wins to continue well into the future, given our history at this event. Now, our next, if you take a look there, I wanted to show some of the photographs of the students who participated. And you'll see here that the Jordan High Choir, you'll see some of the Hillcrest students who are there acting the Corner Canyon team. Look how excited they are to be a part of that festival. And we are excited they represented Canyon School District so well, and we congratulate them on their good work. Our next honorees are the unified soccer teams from Hillcrest, Brighton, and Hillcrest High School. They showed amazing heart and hustle today on the field where professional soccer players face off every once in a while. Canyons District had 3 of the 16 teams that qualified to compete for a state title today at America First Field, the home of Real Salt Lake. And as we know, that's the professional soccer team headquartered in the heart of Canyon School District. The Special Olympics unified teams include students with and without disabilities on the same competitive sports teams. Now, we see this as fostering empathy, connection, and inclusion. Now, this marquee event started with a parade of athletes, an address by First Lady Abby Cox, appearances by Real Salt Lake players and Leo the Lion. We even had the national anthem sang by Miss America. Now, I understand that our Canyons District teams did really well. They took 2nd place in their divisions. You'll see some of the photographs of the students on our teams here with Dr. Robbins. We were there congratulating our teams. We gave them high fives and fist bumps before they walked onto the field for the parade of athletes. Their energy was contagious. It was so much fun to go and support our students who compete in unified athletics. Now, here's a little known fact I thought you might be interested in knowing. Brighton, Alta, Jordan, and Hillcrest were 4 of the first 12 high schools in Utah to field unified soccer teams for students of all kinds. Now, that was in 2014. And look to what it's grown to now. So congratulations to all of our students who participated today in this fantastic competition. Our next honorees are students from Alta, Brighton, Corner Canyon, Hillcrest, and Jordan High Schools. They are a part of the College Board's 2022 National Recognition Programs. The Hawks, the Bengals, the Chargers, the Diggers, the Huskies, they've all earned these awards and the recognition programs for historically underrepresented students in AP courses. Students must be college-bound in order to be considered for the award, have already taken a college entrance exam, and have at least a 3.5 GPA. Now, Canyon student winners in these recognition programs are in the National Hispanic Recognition from Corner Canyon High School, Dax Harper, Christine Schmidt, Brighton Jakeman, Catalina Geraldo, and Jasmine Sandovar. From Hillcrest High School in the National Hispanic Recognition Program, Jonathan Medill and Katharina Lemoy. From Brighton High School, we have several students in the National African American Recognition Program, and that is Sheila Amador. The National Hispanic Recognition Award also goes to the Bengals Hassan Alabas, Julia Orozco, and Noah Martinez. From Alta High School in the National Hispanic Recognition Program, Kevin Law. And from Jordan High School in the National Hispanic Recognition Program, Sahaba White. Those are the students from Canyon School District who have received those national honors in the Recognition Program Awards for students who are historically underrepresented in college entrance exam participants and the students who qualify and go to college. So congratulations to them. Our next honoree is Nicole Shawn, the science teacher extraordinaire from Brighton High School. She is the Outstanding Chemistry Educator for 2022 of the Utah Science Teachers Association. Now, you may recognize Nicole. She was one of our Teachers of the Year. In fact, she was our High School Teacher of the Year and one of the runners-up for the Canyons District Teacher of the Year honor. You'll see there, she is standing with one of the Real Salt Lake players who surprised her after her win to give her tickets to the game, give her a jersey, and other Real Salt Lake memorabilia that she could wear when we announced our Teachers of the Year at halftime on field. So congratulations to Nicole for being named the Outstanding Chemistry Educator for 2022 from the Utah Science Teachers Association. Now, Sunday may have been a day of rest for our employees, but was a day that was set aside across the country to honor the work of people who literally never rest, and that's the Canyons District custodians. Now, it was the custodian day, all custodians, but of course, we focus on the education support professionals who help us keep our schools as clean as possible. Now, while delivering outstanding service and running a well-maintained building, our assistant facility managers and other custodians contribute to the critical first impressions and the success of a school. They are the people we call on to give our brick and mortar schools a polished look. The schools and the central offices look organized and presentable because of our ESP folks who we call AFMs or other sweepers or custodians. They do everything they can to make sure everything runs efficiently. They make sure buildings are ready for each season. They make sure they run correctly. And as a result of this, the buildings are safer and healthier for everyone entering them. And it was never more important than during the last few years when it was vital that we had clean and sanitary schools. We value our custodians so much, we are giving not one, but 2 Apex Awards to assistant facility managers. And that's Lone Peak's Mark Ward and Draper's Bano Tagovailoa. Now, they joined 10 others in receiving Apex Awards on August 11th. It's our 13th annual event. We invite the entire community to join us that day, that's next Tuesday, to honor those who we have chosen as the best of the best in Canyon School District. And this year's winners are Teacher of the Year. We announced her last spring, Katie Tinoco from Draper Elementary School. School Administrators of the Year, Altera Elementary Principal Nicole Savi Nagan, Peruvian Park Elementary Principal Leslie Jukes, and Glacier Hills Elementary Principal Julie Winfrey. The District Administrators of the Year are School Performance Director Dr. McKay Robinson and Student Services Department Program Administrator BJ Weller. The Education Support Professionals of the Year, as we mentioned, are Mark and Fano from 2 fantastic elementary schools. And our Student Support Services Professionals of the Year are the Title I Schools Community School Facilitators. That was very hard for me to say. The Elected Official of the Year, a great support to us, is Representative Susan Pulsifer. Our Community Partner of the Year, another great organization that supports us, is Jordan Credit Union. The Volunteer of the Year is Ridgecrest Volunteer Extraordinaire Marcy Cardin. And the Legacy Award, as selected by the Board of Education and the Superintendent, is Rick Conger, our recently retired Facilities Director. We look forward to honoring these people who have given so much to the Canyons District community. In the past, it was a by invitation only event. We could only have about 250 people there this year, but not this year. We've changed the lineup so that we have a reception and then we immediately go into the auditorium where hundreds of people from all parts of our community, friends, family, faculties, supporters can come and cheer on those who have received Apex Awards for 2022. We invite everyone to join us on that night. So President Tini, thank you for this time for recognitions and return the time back to you.
Thank you. Every meeting, it's just amazing how many great things that are shared with us that are happening, and recognizing that it probably is the tip of the iceberg, that there's much accomplishment and many things to celebrate. So we appreciate your preparing that report for us. We've now come to the patron comment portion of our meeting. While not required by law, the board often designates time in meetings to listen to the patrons of the district. Patron comment time is limited to residents and taxpayers of Canyons District, students and parents of students, and current employees of the district. Patrons may provide board members with written documents. These can be submitted to the board secretary here at the meeting, over here, Cindy, or emailed to the Office of Public Communications by noon of the day following the board meeting. Tonight, we have one individual that has signed up to address the board, and so they will be given 3 minutes to address the board. If it's the board's practice to listen and take notes during patron comments, the Board of Education does not discuss matters that are not on the meeting's agenda, nor engage in public comment on individual students to protect their privacy or employee issues. If a patron wants to comment on a district employee's character, professional competence, or mental or physical health, the board requests that these comments be submitted to the board in writing. However, if the patron determines to verbally comment on those personnel issues, the comments need to be civil and refrain from personal attacks, insults, and defamatory or slanderous comments about an individual. The Board of Education would like to make it clear that critical race theory is not part of the curriculum being used by Canyon School District. There are no plans to incorporate it into the curriculum or instruction in Canyon schools. The Board of Education values input on all sides of issues. To maintain decorum and respect, we ask that those in attendance refrain from applause or other types of demonstrations during the patron comment time, as well as throughout the meeting. So this evening, Aaron Butler has signed up to address the board, and we'll turn the time over to Mr. Butler.
Thank you for your time. Situation in the court is I do have split custody with my ex-wife. I've had her in school since Head Start. She's now in middle of 3rd grade. I do believe the school system has an 18-day attendance policy. She has missed 30 days at the 3 months she attended Sandy Elementary. She is currently sitting at 19 and a half days absent from Sandy Elementary. Her health and well-being is the most importance to me. She also has asthma. The school system did not have that on file. I've had to make 3 trips down here myself because I can't do it over the phone and everything else. I do reside 500 miles away, so it does take me time to get down here. I've had my daughter accepted in school. I was informed that she cannot be in 2 school systems at once. I'm at a loss in some ways. I don't know what to do because I brought it to the attention. I've had a meeting today with Miss Agate, her 3rd grade teacher. There's also severe concerns. Like I said, she has asthma. She has not been given an inhaler. My ex-wife has had this information, did not give the school system. In some ways, I'm lost and don't know what to do. Again, there's a school attendance policy. I've had to take her out of school. She's done homeschool every once in a while, but now she is currently on online school at Wyoming Online. But they also do have a attendance policy as well. And also, she cannot be legally enrolled in 2 school systems. The state of Montana and the state of Wyoming both have had meetings with the board saying that this is illegal and cannot be done. So I'm at a loss in what I'm supposed to do. I've also spoke with the school's attorney. I believe his name is Daniel Harper. First person who called me back claiming to be Harper was not. He was from Planning Enrollment, give me online access to the school system. Daniel Harper called me back saying this was not supposed to happen. It is against policy to be enrolled in 2 school systems and in some ways illegal. I just would like to know what a parent is supposed to do. If you can't communicate with the school system, one can't always make trips 500 miles at any time there's a situation.
Okay, Mr. Butler, I think we're probably not the ones that can answer those specific questions. Superintendent.
Let's set a meeting up. Let's work on this. So yeah, it's probably not the best forum to address that, but let's meet and get something worked out.
Okay. Should I call your office then, or?
Yeah, Cindy can get your contact information, but we'll get a meeting together. Are you going to be here
for the next few days or
No,
what?
I've
gotta
only
go
made
back.
this, I made this trip down to see your teacher again to have a conference because there was a mistake at the school.
Okay.
Like I said, I reside almost 500 miles away.
Okay.
So that's why I believe I spoke with you before. I spoke with somebody else at the office and it just, I don't know what else.
I understand your frustration. So let's talk. All right.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That concludes our patron comment time for the meeting, and we appreciate those that take time to engage with the board in this manner. Next on the agenda are the consent agenda items. So I will ask for a motion for those items, and in making the motion, please list each of the specific items.
I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the consent agenda, which includes item A, approval of minutes for September 20th, 2022. Item B, approval of hire and termination reports. Item C, approval of purchasing bids. Item D, approval of student overnight travel. Item E, approval of LEA endorsements. Item F, approval of new policy. 300.14 sanitation in schools, integrated pest management plan. Item G, approval of policy 500.30, open enrollment, school admissions, and school moratoriums. And item H, approval of policy 700.05, community engagement, previously known as community involvement.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any discussion to the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda is item 8A, communication of the CSD strategic plan. I will turn time over again to Jeff Haney and Kirsten Stewart from the communications department.
President Tini, our apologies for monopolizing all of your time tonight. We'll try to make this as quick as possible, and we can have offline conversations with every member of the board who would like to know more about how we will do a lot of communicating in the coming months about the Board of Education's newly approved and adopted strategic plan. We see this as talking about growth, we see it talking about learning, and we see us talking a lot about success.
So, in reality, the why, as you all will know, has remained the same for the district, right? Our mission of preparing students for a career and the rigors of life, college and careers is the same. Strategic plan really describes the how and the what, and will help us prioritize how we achieve that mission. So our messaging, we envision will really be focusing on helping employees, families, tax-paying patrons, our students, elected officials, understand the how by really showing how we're achieving those goals. So through storytelling that shows how, not just tells how, like, for example, success stories about how our PLCs are taking root in our schools and making a difference for students.
Obviously, we'll be focusing on our strategic focus areas as we do this storytelling about what's happening in our schools regarding the areas in our strategic plan that will take us to that next level. The high quality learning, the access and opportunity, human-centered supports and operating systems. In our study session, we heard from our subcommittees about the work that is being done. We took a lot of notes and we've met with a lot of people to start thinking about how we can start messaging all of the strategic focus areas and the why behind it and how it's impacting our schools and our communities. We also see this as a bridge to engagement. Our own strategic plan asks us to create methods for two-way of communication. That impact statement is that Canyons District will provide students, educators, employees, and parents the opportunity to engage in that two-way communication. And we've talked a lot about this in our subcommittee work, and we continue to talk about it as a district administration. There are many ways that we've already created ways to connect with our community.
Right. And so if you'll recall with the bond campaign, one of the things that we did was just really capitalize on the events that we already have scheduled at all of our schools
and the communication tools that we're using on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. We're going to be doing a lot of that with this as well. So you're going to see us at football games. You're going to see us at faculty meetings, where we just already have a captive audience. Portions of our CSD newsletter would be perhaps devoted to conveying messages about or explaining the strategic plan and then showing how we're putting it into work, as an example.
You'll see here where we already have identified how we can connect with our community. We're not going to reinvent the wheel with the communication rollout. We already have established methods of communication with our community. And of course, we add some every single year to enhance the effectiveness of getting information to the end of the row, so to speak. Now, we will tell you that the timeline itself, we're just asking for a little bit of grace. We've got a lot on our plates right now. After Tuesday, when the curtain goes down on Apex Awards, we will have a heck of a lot more time to dedicate to our campaign to rolling out information about the strategic plan. But we also need to listen a lot about what the subcommittees are doing and hear what they have to say and piggyback on what work they're doing. So we can create a very solid plan for a beginning of the year rollout with information to our communities. We create that editorial and event calendar to be created and shared with the Board of Education. And like Kirsten said, we don't reinvent the wheel. We just take into consideration what we already do and then have information at the places where our people are. The strategic plan, we'll come up with a fun way of branding our strategic plan and the rollout, but we'll have booths and tents and collateral distribution. And those appearances will be timed to coincide with the already scheduled public events that we have. PTA events, fun runs, parent-teacher conferences, sporting events, athletic activities. We want to be where our people are. And when they're there, they'll get messaging about the strategic plan. We'll also piggyback on our canyoneering academies, the parent information nights. We've worked with Dr. Robbins already on establishing some employee listening tour events or some meetings with faculties, district employee trainings, meetings. Of course, when the board members hold your town halls, we'll make sure that you have all the pamphlets and flyers that you need, which will lead to information that will be on our websites. And of course, we also plan to reach out and collaborate with our municipal partners, Sandy, Midvale, Cottonwood Heights, Draper, the townships in our area. The face-to-face communication where we go to be where people are. And much like the bond campaign, we'll have a corresponding collateral that you can hand out, we can hand out, and we can engage in conversations.
Okay, so written communication is another form of two-way communication that we'll be engaging in and continuing to engage in new ways and in old ways. So you're all familiar by now with the I Know newsletter. It goes out to every family in the district. I'm sorry, I know I got confused with CSD TDU. Yes, sorry, the employee newsletter goes out to every newsletter. So it'll be important as we ramp out or layer this campaign that employees are obviously a very critical component of this, right? They're going to need to have to understand this and embrace it. And so that will be a critical component of that. Flash Friday surveys is kind of something new that we've thought about, where we're just going to push these little surveys out to either our employees or our patrons and our families, just to ask how we're doing. So let's say we just implemented some new ways to sign up for parent-teacher conferences, for example, with parents, where we could simply ask them, how did it go? Was it too slow? Were you able to figure it out? Those kinds of things. CSD2, I mentioned this earlier, but we could devote a section of that to just the strategic plan. I don't know how familiar you are with this, but we have a Your School is Your Voice portal on our website. Anyone can use this to submit an idea. It could be an employee with an idea, could be a parent with a question. We have staff who respond to those questions that come in, and then we forward that information to the administrators who can, make changes or discuss new policy avenues with you to explore. And then, of course, the superintendent's Friday message is something that we've been doing for some time now, and we're finding a lot of success, and so we'll continue with that.
So every time we take a look at how we can communicate with our public, we'll ask ourselves, what part of the strategic plan do we need to be focusing on? Or so that every time we're sending out something to our patrons, it has something in there that says something about a strategic plan. even if it's just the logo of our campaign with a QR code that goes to the part of the website that has all the information and videos about the strategic plan. So every time they get something, it has a little thing on there that reminds them that we do have a roadmap to our strategic plan, a roadmap to growth, a roadmap to success. And now we also will focus on that technology-based communication. We've launched Parent Square, so we'll participate in messaging through Parent Square. We have our Skylar messaging system, but that's not necessarily a two-way, but we'll continue to use that because it's a way to get information out. We will plan and schedule social media stories, photos, graphics that have to do specifically with what we're doing with the strategic plan and how items in our strategic plan are increasing the achievement of our students and the capacity of our faculty and staff. And then, of course, working alongside Dr. Robbins and a new staff member in communications department, his name is Justin Anderson, working on the growth of CSD TV with documentary style shorts about things that are happening in our schools that are related to our strategic plan and items that are innovative in nature that perhaps our community doesn't know about now. And it would be nice for them to be able to go to CSD TV and watch what we're doing. And then Kirsten also is spearheading a little bit of a major redesign of the website. So when you go to canyonsdistrict.org, what you see in images reflects the vision and the mission of our strategic plan.
Yeah, so that's going to be one of the first items on our busy to-do list. We have about 60 websites, as you know, a family of websites. And these really, we view these as very critical piece of our communication strategies. They're sort of the source of truth. They anchor our communication strategies. And so while it's very important that they're kind of chock full of a lot of information and stories about the amazing things that our schools are doing, and I think they are now, it's also important that when someone goes to those websites, they're understanding who we are, what we stand for, what our values are, and why CSD is the place to be. So we're going to reevaluate, just the main head of the first thing you see so that we're conveying that. It'll have more of a modern look and feel. We'll probably be looking at a secondary navigation bar. So we're not going to mess with the navigation, which is right now primarily based on who you are, right? So if you're an employee, you go here. If you're a parent, you go here. But we're going to have another navigation bar that really kind of focuses on admissions, right? How to enroll in our schools. We're going to make that easy. We're going to make that streamlined. And then we're going to have little focus areas on academics. What are we offering in the way of academics? What are some of our marquee programs? Arts. What are we offering in the way of arts, athletics, science, technology, and college prep? And of course, we'll have areas on there where we're spotlighting just our success, telling our success stories, and just some quick infographic facts about our classroom sizes, our scholarships, athletic and state championships, some of the stuff that you heard about this evening from Jeff.
But the aim is not only to message what we stand for through our strategic plan, the vision and the mission that the board has established, but also to make it easy for our community to know who we are and to get the information they need to have a successful experience. When Kirsten says we want to make it easy for people to register for Canyons District, we've already started working on the ways that we can make it easy for people to be in Canyons District. Let's focus on it. The one thing that we have been looking at is when people go to our website, what's the immediate feel? What do they think about us? So that's part of our thinking. The images that you see will make you feel a certain way, and that will lead you to believe of what we stand for. When we go to canyonsdistrict.org right now, is it really what we want? Now, we think that we can have a different type of look and therefore a different branding experience.
I neglected to mention also that we want to help schools do the same thing with their web pages, right? So each of our schools, you heard from Molly Hart today about the amazing things that they're doing at Albion Middle and the Albion Way. Well, let's help them promote that on their website and help people understand what makes Albion tick and what makes it so great. So whether they're a U.S. News highly ranked school, like so many of our schools are, they're producing Rhodes Scholars, we're going to promote that right there up in front.
So we have a lot on our plates right now, but a lot as really exciting things. The strategic plan isn't just a guide for us in growth and success. It's also a way for us to evaluate how we're seen and what type of a vision and what that we are showing our community. So when they think of Canyons District, what do they think of? And that strategic plan that we have in front of us will help us build that image for Canyon School District. For 14 years now, we've been the new kids on the block, and it's true. We've branded ourselves as the first new school district to be created in Utah in 100 years. And what we're looking at now is what's the next chapter? When people see us, what do they think of? This roadmap, the strategic plan, gives us an idea of how we can brand us well into the future.
Question?
Oh, thank you so much for that report. I think there's probably some questions and comments from the board. So, Mrs. Oaks.
Thank you so much. I know I've been hounding you guys and I apologize because you have had a lot on your plate and I just want to recognize that, especially with the safety audit and so many other things. We fully recognize that. Part of the request really had to do with the fact that we are so excited about the strategic plan and it's a big accomplishment and we want to capitalize that before we lose part of our momentum. So one of the questions I have is whether or not there's been any discussion with initial videos of producing even just a short video that's accessible on the main website for people to click on and be able to quickly see what the strategic plan is going to be all about.
Yes, that is part of our plan. We will have a website dedicated to the strategic plan. So when you can go to our homepage and you'll be able to see where you can get more information, click on it there. And much like our bond campaign, much like the search for the superintendent, there was a total separate section where you go with everything is packaged in one place. So yes, we will.
Mrs. Neubauer.
I just want to thank you. This is so super exciting. Anytime we're able to really hone in on everything we have to offer and put it out there in an engaging way with our community. And I think your department does a great job at that. So I'm really grateful that you're the ones spearheading this and we're getting this all wrapped in the website. I thought I had, as far as that personal connection piece, any thoughts about doing a chat box? I know a lot of businesses, my business, we have that, and it's pretty great to get someone funneled to where they need to go. As far as, hey, I'm checking out Canyons, what's my neighborhood school? And then we can put them in touch with the principal or the secretary at the school or something like that. Is that something that we could maybe look into or even if it's not the actual paid service chat box, but like someone here at the district with communications? Jeff's smiling. He's probably already thought of it.
Well, actually, yes, I'm so glad that you brought that up. So as you know, our office also has been asked to look into how we can do a lot of strategic enrollment marketing initiatives. And one of the things that we mentioned in our report is a place on our website to make it easy to register for Canyon School District. A place on our website that we can get information easily to the people who are coming to us and saying, hey, where can I find this? What about that? And so Kirsten, in her work on the major redesign of the website, is going to take into consideration those kind of thoughts. And will it be something we can do for sure? I can't promise that, because it is something that we are looking at because we want to immediately provide customer service and connection to the people who are reaching out to us. Yes, it's something we're looking into.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thank you. Mrs. Arnold?
So I was just going to tell you both that I was already tired and now I'm really exhausted after listening to all that you plan on doing, plus what you're already doing. But it's amazing, and thank you so much for all of that time and effort, even like putting that all up for us so that we can understand it. And please do be careful and take your time, and it will get done. I know it will, because I know you both.
Thank you, Clarine. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Mrs. Schill?
So I just wanted to add my thanks. And I am really excited about your idea about the website, because I think our website is great. It has so much information, but we want someone to look at that and say, hey, I want my kid to go there. Like it needs to just capture that. And I think you guys got it, but I am excited about that, and thank you for all your work, and I know you guys are extremely busy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wrigley?
Thank you. I'm really excited about seeing what happens and that goes out. I was wondering in possibility of having dedicated Facebook groups for some of our staff, our teachers, or a Facebook group for ESPs or something that they could interchat with one another and support one another. It would be opt-in. It would be one of those things you'd have to a closed group so the community wouldn't be able to get, but we'd be able to put that within a special Facebook group for just our staff that they would have to be. So you may have teachers communicating. I don't know if we have that already. I don't think we do, but I think we might be able to have a moderated group and allow to each, because it's part of our strategic plan to provide that support. And that may be one of the things that we can do, just have a closed Facebook group that people, different groups basically can get into or something.
No, thank you for bringing up how important social media will be as we present information to the community of our strategic plan. And as Leon mentioned, as part of the work with the subcommittee, we are proposing to create another stipend for social media managers at every school. And we will receive ongoing professional development from our office and constant support from the district on sending of the message to their communities through social media about what their schools stand for. So yes, Steve, that's a really good idea. And yes, social media will be a part of our strategy.
Okay, thank you. I want to add my appreciation for your work and for your vision on this. But a thought that has come to me is it's up to all of us to understand and know that strategic plan and speak to it when the occasion arises, and to help guide the public that we represent as a board to where they can get the information. And I know that our communications team is going to put some pretty amazing stuff together. I mean, there's already wonderful things available and information available. So thank you for providing us with this information, this plan, and we look forward to seeing how it all rolls out. And but count us in on that as part of it, part of the rollout. So
thank you, President Ting. Thank you, board, for your support.
thank you. Okay, next is item 8B, school fees policy review. And we'll turn time over to Leon Wilcox, business administrator. And while he's coming, I'll just remind the board, this is a requirement that we do this annually.
Yes, President Ting, as we have a few minutes, I just have to ask one question, being an accountant. What did the accountant's wife say to her husband when she could not fall asleep? Tell me about your day. Tell me about your day. Yes, as President Tingy said, under board docs, I have this presentation. I also have our policy and the state board rule on school fees. So as President Tingy said, under the USBE rule, the board has to adopt their policy and they have to review that once each year. So that is the purpose of this review right here. It is to not discuss the fee schedule itself, because you did approve that last March for this upcoming year, but go over the policy. And so you see the policy there, it does address, again, on board docs, we have to talk about fees, fundraising, fee waivers, and donations. Let's just review our policy, as that's the purpose of this. We've done this the last couple of years, and now it's kind of getting to be a little bit old school, if you will, on fees, on how we have to adopt this. This has been a priority by the state board and the legislature for the last few years as they wrote statute on this. when we do have the fee schedule, when we do propose it, we have to have at least 2 opportunities for public comment. We usually have 3 here. We have to have it adopted for the next year by April 1st. We have to have a maximum fee per student for each activity. It has to be a total aggregate fee per student for each school year. Revenue raised by a student through individual fundraisers shall be included as part of the maximum fee for the activity and the aggregate amount. And we have to have a spend plan for each fee we impose. And it has to be, of course, posted on our website and each school's website. Just talking about waivers, if we can charge a fee, it can be waived for students who do qualify. We have to make sure no student is denied, and this is the last thing we'd ever want to do, is denied the opportunity to participate in any type of activity because of the fee imposed. We make sure at least one administrator at every level, that's mainly our secondary schools, is trained in fee waivers and granting those, but we usually make sure all of them can do this as well. But one in particular is to oversee that. Of course, we do not want schools treating a student on waiver different than any other student. And to identify those students, we're very cautious about that, and our principals are too. And we also have to make sure the fee waivers are distributed across the district, so that way, and we do that so that no school carries a disproportionate share. Donations, you can see there. Donation is a fee if a student or parent is required to make a donation as part of a condition participation in the class or activity. So, it's not a donation if it's a fee, but schools may solicit donations by a student or parent, but it must be clearly stated they are voluntary. Anything over $500 does need to go through our foundation, and the district accepted donation that would create significant inequity among our other schools out there. One of the things we have to do, and I believe these just came out today, was we have to complete a certification of compliance. So President Tingy, Dr. Robbins, and each principal must complete a Qualtrics survey. I don't know if you got yours today. Did you? Yes. And we have to have everyone completed by the end of October. That we do have our policy in place and we do follow it, which also matches up with the USBE's policy. So last year we had 52 surveys we had to complete, and we got them all done. And so we'll make sure that happens again this year. Being a numbers guy, just wanted to review last year's amounts of fees that we collected, that we charged and waived and then collected. So you can see the general fees there. That would be mainly the activity fee. The curricular fees, there would be the class fees. There is a small amount of co-curricular fees that kind of blend in and out of the school day, and then the extracurricular outside the school day. So and then we had students or families qualify for about 520,000 of fee waivers. And again, we spread that equally amongst all the schools, the secondary schools. It should be noted that in the JLC priorities, they are advocating for funding to eliminate general curricular and co-curricular fees. Did not put a number to that because the number could vary, but we'll see what happens with that. Again, I believe this will also be a priority of the State Board of Education, maybe down the list a couple, but that's my understanding as well. So we'll see what happens with that as the legislative session moves forward. Our next steps would be for next year. Again, the fee schedule is set for this year, but when we look at next year's fee schedule, we'll start bringing that to the board in February, where we will start meeting with the principals and their assistants on any possible changes they may have. Then we'll review those internally ourselves before bringing you the proposed schedule. So with that, I'll leave it at that, and that's all. So any questions I'd be happy to have.
Any questions or comments?
have no more jokes, so I'm out.
Well, yeah, thank you. And yeah, as one of the questions on that compliance survey is if we've conducted our annual training. So
Yep.
we can
Check that box.
definitely say yes on that. And we usually say yes on everything else because we have some great administration that has really helped us out as the state and the district has transitioned into this new way of approaching school fees, which we hope will expand opportunity to all students for some of these activities and learning opportunities. So thank you very much for doing that. Okay, board, that concludes the items on our agenda for this evening. Next, we will have staff comments. I'll give some time to superintendent for a report, and then to Superintendent Robbins, and then to Business Administrator Leon Wilcox.
Thank you, President T. Just congratulations and thank you to our unified sports teams. I know I've told everybody the story, but our student that led Brighton High out, they were the first team out. He was chanting, "This is our house." So, that stadium is our house. So we got that clear. Great to see our kids. But also, just want to thank our teachers and CE8. And I know I've got feedback as well as all of you. And we talked about it tonight in human-centered supports, just about the morale with our teachers and staff and the heavy lift that they all have and being out in schools. I certainly recognize that. And it's definitely a priority. I think, I've said this many times, the whiplash effect that the pandemic has had, along with all the other additional things that have been added to our plates, and just the culture and the environment that we're in, really thinking about supporting our teachers and staff and looking at different ways that we can do that. So I just want to share my appreciation to all of them, and also just our administrative team tonight, the presentations. I'm super excited about the direction the strategic vision is providing, and you can feel us really starting to narrow in on priorities and things that, as we talked about, really high yield, high leverage strategies that will pay dividends for the district in the future. So I really appreciate all of the work by our team.
Thank you.
Yes, a couple of things. Again, I want to thank all our teachers for all their hard work, particularly last week with parent-teacher conferences. It's always amazing. My wife and I went to our fifth graders conference, dual immersion. So there's two teachers. It's amazing how in tandem they work together at these schools. It really is. They have all these charts and that they show us so well prepared. So parents really appreciate that we really appreciate the time they give us, the questions they answer. It's just, I'm always amazed going at these. One of the things they said, "Hey, your son acts so well and is so well behaved in class." And I'm wondering, how do you guys get to do that? Because we can't do that at home. So we do appreciate that. Also want to big thank you to our Jordan Valley staff. With last Thursday, with the early outs, with the transportation logistics that we had, we could not grant them an early out. We have with essentially the high schools and elementaries getting out nearly the same time. So what they did is they went the full day. We appreciate their willingness to do that. Our staff over there is just amazing, the way they care for those kids. That would include our nurses, our OTs, our audiologists, our paras, everyone. It's a big team effort over there. So big thank you for them. We're going to bring back to the board a proposal to try to avoid this at the spring parent-teacher conference in March. So they'll be coming hopefully later this fall. Last thing I want to just mention, we lost, I'm going to call it a family member of Canyon School District, Preston Kirk. Many of you know Preston. Preston actually started coming to board meetings. Maybe Mont will remember this and others before we actually officially became a district in 2008 and before, trying to get the first set of bonds issued on the buildings out there. So you know, with his work, we were able to go forth with Corner Canyon, Butler, Albion, Midvale Elementary, you know, that first wave, Draper Park. So he passed away due to cancer that he's been battling the last 10 years. I went to his viewing Sunday night and expressed our sincere condolences and our thanks for all that he's done for us over the last nearly 15, well, it has been 15 years working with us on our capital funding projects. So he will be greatly missed. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we will now have board member reports. Let's start with Mr. Milliberg.
Leon, if you can tell accounting jokes, I can too. You know what the definition of a computer is? That is a CPA with a personality. It'll sink in. You'll get it, but by tomorrow,
Button by button.
by tomorrow, Leon, you'll understand that one. Pretty excited about the strategic plan and all the effort that's taking place to put it in place. And I think as I look at the strategic plan, what I keep thinking is, you know, at Canyons, we're pretty darn good. And I really appreciate the attitude that we can do better. I think as we stack up against other districts in the state, in the nation, we are good. And I really, really like fine tuning that, eliminating the things that we are not real good at and making things better. A lot of good effort has gone into this. For me, it's been fun to be on a couple of the committees and feel the energy that's there. Leon, you mentioned Preston Kirk. What a great gentleman. As a brand new school district, to pass a bond showed a lot of trust from the community to the Canyon School District and to the Board of Education. Just a few years after that, to pass a second bond and have our community trust it was a huge deal. And I attribute a lot of that trust to Preston and his team. And he is a big loss, and I think you're very appropriate to refer to him as part of the Canyons team, part of the family. He really is. Also would like to extend gratitude and congratulations to the board for meeting the Master Board Certification monthly challenge. That's a big deal. Now we've got probably less than 60 days to complete the entire Master Board Certification as a board. Really excited that we've done that for the last couple of years at 100%. So the challenge is out there to finish that up by the end of November.
Thank you. Mrs. Arnold? I'm gonna have to have somebody take my tests this time for the master board. I want to shout out to the custodians. They, as some of you know, I have two of my own children who are custodians in the district. And they tell me all of the awesome stories that go on all day long. And all the challenges that also go on. And I have to say that I just really respect and are thankful that we have them and that we have the facilities that we do and that they are clean and safe and that they love the children. And part of the staying and being custodians is being with the kids and being with the teachers and the respect and that they get from both the teachers and the students. And so as it's National Custodian Day a few days ago, I want to just shout out to them and say thank you for keeping the facilities safe and clean for all of us.
And then also thank you to the to the teachers who just went through parent group conferences. I get mine tomorrow night. And I know it was a lot of extra work and a lot of extra time. And I know that you're tired. And like Leon said, though, that the parents really, really appreciate it. And they appreciate knowing where their kids are and how they're doing. I also want to say thank you for all the work that's gone into the strategic plan, all the parents who's come, all the community who's come, all the administration who's put in massive hours. And yes, we hope to make things better in both ways, taking things away that you don't need to do, but putting things in place that might make life a little easier, but still working towards having an excellent educational program. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Mrs. Oakes. I want to echo what Crane said about parent-teacher conferences, as well as what Mont said about the committees. It's awesome to get together and start seeing where this is going. I just also want to throw a shout out to the many schools that have been doing their school fundraisers, the elementaries. I got to participate, our family participated in the Dragon Dash over at Draper Elementary. I mean, all of them are so busy doing so many things. It's pretty amazing. And I loved participating in the school community council training last week. And it was a full room in our conference room. And we had some of the school administrators and parents there that represented their local communities through the school community council. And I want to give a shout out to Susan and to Alice. They did a phenomenal job with that training. And it was fun to hear some of the ideas that these SCC members have for their own schools. I also was able to attend an arts consortium meeting last Monday, and man, that was awesome. I have been so excited to hear about what's coming for the arts teachers in the district as a result of having the universal early out on Fridays. The feedback that we were getting from the teachers at the secondary level was great. And that is something that they've been talking about and lamenting about for years. And so to hear that that's really starting to help move the needle and what they're able to accomplish in the classroom was wonderful. We had a phenomenal discussion. Wendy Dow was there, and we originally thought that they would be able to come, that Sherry Jorgensen would be able to come and present on the state of the arts tonight, but there's so much that is going on that we decided that she would need a little bit more time. So I'm looking forward to that report and to share with you some of what's happening in the district. And also, we have a meeting coming up with Ellen Matheson, who's the one leading the charge on the point out at the state prison property that is going to be transforming. And he is very excited and looking forward to hearing what we have planned or thoughts are with regard to a school out there. And I know that the legislators up on the Hill that are making decisions with regard to the point are very interested in seeing what we come up with in terms of innovation. So I was excited for the conversation we had tonight with regard to the committee work and where that's going and what we want to focus on. I really feel like there's some urgency on us really discussing innovation and planning for that. We're going to need a long runway, so we kind of need to get started sooner rather than later, but I just want to put that out there so all of you are aware of it. Thank you, Mr. Wrigley.
Every year I tend to have the opportunity to go and speak at the Entrada government class. They call me in, and usually one of our state representatives comes with me. This year they weren't able to come, but it's always fun to go and spend some time, but we're always been in trailers. And this time today was really sort of fun. We sat there and they were so excited to have this new building and to be able to actually sit in a classroom. They feel like an adult high school. And it looked cool. I got to see everything done. And so what turned out, most of the time we stick to politics and to vote and stuff like that. And they asked all these questions and how much fun it is to run for office, and always try to discourage them. Anyway, but this time they got into what's the meaning of life. It was a really interesting discussion and what the secret to life is. And we went on for like about 45 minutes. Just I'm going, this is interesting. But at the end, one of the students said, I want to register to vote. So they went and got him a thing, and he'd never voted before. And he went and voted. So that was a great opportunity to be able to meet with the students and to share that in their new setting. And they're so grateful for that. The other blessing to my life has been an opportunity to go out and meet so many people while on this campaign trail. I always worry about that as an incumbent because you can really get an earful if everybody's really ticked. I have had some really nice complimentary things to say about this board. They have been so appreciative about us keeping the schools open and how we dealt with all the different issues. I've got more compliments than I've got complaints. And so that's been really good. You get an idea of what you do. And even the individuals that don't have kids in the school, they have a lot of compliments for us too, just the way. So it's so interesting because you really never get to know what's going on until you start knocking on hundreds of doors. And so thank you. I'm just want to let you know that you are appreciated. And so many times people would say that. Just let the board know that they're appreciated for the actions that we're taking. So anyway, it just makes your day. And then every so often get something that doesn't make your day.
Thank you. Mrs. Neubauer? This past week, my 10-year-old son turned 11, and I found a text on my phone from his elementary school teacher of last year, who actually teaches in a totally different school, and said, "I'm just thinking of your son and wanted to wish him a happy birthday." I thought, isn't that amazing? A year later, the teacher from last year. And then I got an email from my first grader's teacher, just wanted to send a quick note about how great your son is in class. And our teachers are amazing. And the communication that they provide and those building moments for our kids and for us, it's just fantastic. I was at Hornbelly's last night, and they were playing some quotes from Peter Pan. And one of my all-time favorites that everyone knows, all it takes is faith, trust, and a little bit of pixie dust. And I was thinking about Canyon School District. What is our pixie dust? What's our magic? I think our magic is our people. Have you ever seen more talented and wonderful people than we have in this district? Our kids, our parents, our teachers, our district administration. I don't know that I've ever rubbed shoulders with as many talented and wonderful people. And what does it take for every child to feel like they can fly? And I think that's this strategic plan. The strategic plan where we're forward thinking and we have that innovative piece and we're looking towards the future. There's another quote in Peter Pan that I love, and it says, "There is freedom waiting for you on the breezes of the sky. And you ask, what if I fall? Oh, but my darling, what if you fly?" And that's what we're going for, right? That every child feels encouraged and engaged at school, that every child feels interested and challenged in school. And I really look forward to what we can do to implement this strategic plan to give our kids that chance to fly, and our teachers that chance to fly, and our parents that chance to be able to have those neat experiences that when they leave Canyon School, that they will have fond memories and they will feel like they have succeeded. And as I break that down and I think about that, I think there's a lot of work, but I think also it's really important that we also look at ways to simplify for our teachers. And I really look forward to next meeting to discuss how to help simplify some things for our elementary school teachers. Because as we grow and as we look at ways we can simplify, I think that's where we harness our greatest asset, which is our people. And just that's all I have. Thank you. Thank you. Mrs. Schill?
So I just want to shout out to our custodians and our sweepers, just as well as several other board members, because I really appreciate them, and they make such a difference in our schools, and their job is not always easy. They get to clean up the gross stuff. So anyway, I just really appreciate them. I also want to thank Susan, Alice, and Nancy for putting on our school community council training. I really think it's probably one of the best in the state. I would like to bet someone on that. So anyway, I just appreciate them. And I was really happy I could be there one time at least to participate in that. And we had really great attendance, as Amanda said. And then I went today to the Unified Sports State Championship of Soccer, and it was so fun. We had a really great team of a lot of Canyons people there. And we actually talked to Abby Cox, and we talked to some board members that are on Special Olympics, and they were kind of talking to us about how we could even expand the program and do more. Like right now, it's kind of decided on a school basis, but we could maybe support growing it. And part of the program today was a panel of students, and they just talked about what the experience meant to them. And it was great. There were kids that, you know, were participants and their mentors, and I don't know what they call them. Do they call them mentors? I don't know. They're helpers, and they all just loved it and talked about how it made such a difference in their schools. And this coach told the story about he was feeling really bad because his team didn't actually make it to the championship. There were only, I think, 8 teams that made it today, and we did have 3 of them in our district. And he just felt so bad because this one boy, he had never scored a goal the whole season. But he just loved playing. And so the kid just came up to him and said to him, "I did soccer." And he was just so proud that he had that chance. And it didn't matter to him that he didn't score a goal. And so I love that story. And I thought anything we can do to improve and to actually get more kids being able to participate in our district, I think would be great. And that's all. Thanks.
Thank you. I really appreciate board members for sharing all that they share, and I won't repeat, but I will say I have shared several of these experiences and appreciation. But I will mention also Preston Kirk and how very much he helped our district. And it was, you know, as a board member, you kind of get thrown into some of these situations where you realize I don't have the experience, I don't have the expertise to really understand or know or predict some of these things, especially financial matters. And his team's help, I think we just can't overstate what an impact it's had. And so I really, we will miss him and appreciate all his contributions. And then I wasn't able to go to the entire program today, but I did get to see part of the games, the 1:30 games this afternoon. And it was so fun to everyone was excited to be there and to play and to be a part of something big at the big field there and in the big stadium and all the people cheering each other on. And I noticed each of the participants on their shirts had a hashtag Play United or Unified, Play Unified on it. And I've been thinking about that ever since. And I just thought, that's a lesson that we can all take to heart, to hashtag Play Unified, hashtag Work Unified, hashtag Serve Unified. And in all aspects of our life, look for ways that we can celebrate all achievements. In those games, the kids were pretty excited if they just were able to kick the ball 2 times in a row, some of them. And other things we can do is we can give encouragement to all. People were cheering each other, and both teammates and people along the sidelines and members of the team they were playing against. They were giving encouragement to all. And then the third thought I had is that we can put others' success above our own, and that we can work towards helping others be successful, and that in turn we will feel an added measure of success by doing that. So those are just some thoughts, and I appreciate all of the conversation and the plans, and I too am excited about the strategic plan and that we're not only rolling out communications and understanding it better, but we're starting to move some of these initiatives forward, and I look forward to that. So thank everyone for their work on that. And if there's anything else. Okay, seeing no other comments or things, I will adjourn the meeting, and thank you all for being here and have a great rest of your evening.